Hello and welcome. This is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. This channel evaluates all aspects of true crime. As you are aware, videos and live streams in this genre often discuss elements of crime that may be disturbing to some viewers. If necessary, take the precautions needed to avoid these feelings. Factual information related to cases is the key to fostering rational true crime discussions. Fortunately, you will find that here. Please hit the like button only once, share the video, and subscribe if you like my content. Thank you very much for watching.
Oh, what's going on, freaks? How the hell's it going over there? Yep, I just got back. I tried to put together those different shows for you guys. Unfortunately, we're way behind this month now. I thought they were going to make it so we could, kind of break even or do something like that, but didn't work. I put all those hours in putting those together, and it just sort of people didn't seem that interested in them. Seemed like a couple of them were pretty interesting to people, but some weren't. I guess you try, see what happens. But today we're going to do I was going to talk about Stephen Stern's Teacher for a little bit, but decided not to because only about 500 people watched that video, so that one collapsed right out of the gate. Yes, I'm complaining as usual because I'm in a really shitty place on YouTube. I don't know what's going on, so that is what it is. Let's see. We did get a couple Delphi kind of like documents that came out. Guess we could take a look at those really quick. They're just really people trying to get access to media. Yeah, it's good to see everybody. It's kind of I guess what it shows me is that I can't really afford to take vacations. Because when I'm gone, it's like a double vacation cost, unfortunately. So, like when you're on a salary job, you just get to go on your vacation and come back and nothing changed. But when you're doing shows every single day and you go on vacation and then you try to take a few days off, then you have the cost of the vacation plus the tremendous drop off in support for the channel during those few days. So it's kind of like, man, that's kind of brutal. But anyways, if we could, on this show, if you guys could please help support the channel and get us going, we're in the worst month we've ever had at this point. So if you guys have the ability to help support the channel during this month so we can get it at least moving forward, I would appreciate it. All right. Tried my best to keep things going even when I was gone, but didn't really work. So that would be awesome. Thank you. Let's see. What's this one? Filing appearance by attorney. Civil case. The undersigned attorney. I'm just looking at a different screen. Yep, double whammy. And I go on the same trip every year, and every year it seemed to be okay, but this time, no. So let's see, these guys are trying to get Twist Media and Motion intervene and to compel access to public trial exhibits. They want to have the exhibits from the trial. And, you know, everybody wants those exhibits. I hope they're made available. I'm not going to go over that document, though. Right, so I don't know if you guys heard what I just said a minute ago, but if you're out there and you have the ability to help support my channel, I would appreciate it. We got to really have a decent night tonight to sort of make up and get to a number. We're currently at 66% of a shitty month. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We're not even at a shitty month. It's just, it's unreal, man. Like, all right. Yeah, so I guess back in 1981 in Keddie, California, there's like a little resort area for cabins. It's like up in northern, you know, eastern California, which is kind of equivalent to like Central Oregon-ish area, kind of like that, where it has a little different looking climate and trees, etc. This is like, apparently this is the cabin here, cabin number 28. And I guess we'll just get started here. Yep. Thanks, Uniquely Susan. Or Susie. Right, well, I think I talked about this before because I have a folder, but there was nothing in the folder. And I know I've mentioned it before, but I've never really just gone over it. Rubicon Girl said, hey, Gray, have you covered that? And another one, like I already did the Girl Scout murders. I did that one. And this one, then I looked and I saw I had a folder, but there was no files in the folder, and I had no folders on Google Earth, so I figured I haven't really gone over it like we used to always do with the newspapers.com. Well, thanks, Alicia Nelson. I don't know what's going on, you guys. I've been doing YouTube for, you know, we've been doing this where, you know, at least I've been doing live streaming for 7 or 8 years. And for the last 5 years, we've really gone out there and made a huge difference in the true crime community by you guys supporting me, and then I'm able to give away a ton of money. For example, we've given $230,000 away, you know, money that I don't have anymore because I gave it away out of the income. And all of a sudden, just recently, it just had a massive collapse. For my videos don't even get seen. They're not being recommended. They're not being, and I don't know what to do. Okay, so if you guys can, you know, get us back on track, you guys are it. I don't have any other options. I've tried all the different things, posted all over the place, tried sharing in different locations, and it just is what it is. You know, I think there's been a push by a bunch of troll communities out there that have affected our ability to actually make a difference out there, and now we're not able to. I still try. Like last month, I was still gave $1,500 away, but I need your guys' support. All right. Hey, this is for the last shitty month. You love you love my work. Well, cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, when we've maybe it's, you know, there's not really any really big, huge cases going on right now, unless you want to just keep covering Karen Reed over and over and over and over and over and over again. So, you know, maybe it's just bad timing all around in the true crime community. Why would I collaborate on another channel? What good does that do me? It's ridiculous. Let's see. Gray, I'm happy able to afford to go on vacation. Yeah, well, it's hard to afford it, you know. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's like just I won't be able to do it next year if it's the same. You know, it was one that we already scheduled a long time ago. Yeah, so let's see. Oh, thanks, Allie Cake and Alicia Nelson and Uniquely Susie. Right. But why aren't I the channel that collaborates over here? I have 150,000 subs. I've been doing this for 7 years. You know, I just don't understand. There's something else at play. It's really frustrating for me. And I know you guys are like, oh, great, I don't want to listen to. I don't care if you don't want to listen to it. I just tell you how I feel, okay? Right. Anyways, let's see. And I try sometimes, but they don't really, you know, it's like, where do I go do that? You know, if they want me on their channel, sure, I'd do it. Right. Yeah, I've been on Court TV many times. Doesn't seem to, you know, the problem is when I'm on Court TV and they put a video out, the troll community takes all of their effort and goes into the comments section and trashes me into oblivion. So by the time anybody's done going through comments, they probably hate my guts, you know, and they don't even know who the hell I am. You know, so it really sucks, okay? And they think it's funny and cute and cool, and right now they're high-fiving, laughing, and shit like that. But they're disgusting people, all right? They've just taken away $250,000 in the future, again, in a 5-year period. They're idiots, okay? Thanks, Kami and Angelia Wilcox. Hey, thanks. Yeah, it's good to be back. I was really tired yesterday. I actually got back at like 4 and I just almost like passed out. I mean, I was just so tired. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad idea, Adeline, up there, you know. It's just, if they want me on their channel, sure, I would do it. There's no point in bringing them over here. All right? So, sure, I would do a collab if they want me on their channel, because then, yeah, I would get my face out there, right? But if they came over here, what good does that do? You understand what I'm saying? Like, what good does it do for me? I would definitely collab, and I've done it on other channels. But why would I have a collab and bring them over to my channel at this point? I mean, it'd be great if I was working with somebody, you know, like we were working on videos together, and they'd come here, and I'd go there, and we go back and forth. That'd be awesome. You didn't hear what I said, Adeline. You just kind of glossed over my sentence. Right. Yeah, those channels that sit around with 14 people up on there, that's not collabing. It's garbage. Yeah. Right. All right, so anyways, I'm going to go ahead and let's just get going here. Yeah, I mean, I've said, hey, you know, definitely would, you know, if somebody wants me to come on and talk about Delphi or Idaho 4 or any of the cases out there that I know really well, then I would go over there. Okay, but I don't need them to come here because I already know it. You know what I mean? Nah, it doesn't work that way, Moofies. You guys end up going, oh, cool, I can go over there now. And then all of a sudden it starts dividing up the support. That's how it works when you do it. Mm-hmm. Right. Hey, thanks, Rubicon Girl. All right. Anyways, that's just what I'm doing. If there's somebody out there that wants me to come on their channel, that'd be great. And then, you know, if we're working on a case together and they come on mine and we're going back and forth trying to work through things, that'd be great. definitely would do something like that. It doesn't bother me, but if it's like a one-time shot, you know, it's like, I don't know. Doesn't make sense. Alright, so here we go. Let's just get going here. We're going to do the whole newspaper thing. So I'm going to be reading newspaper articles to you, everybody. So at the time, while I'm doing that, if you could help support the channel during that, that'd be fantastic. Because it always goes on for hours and hours, and then it just, you know, gets to a point where it's hard to do. Alright, so this is the first one that I've got in here from, it happened on April 12th. This is April 14th right here. Wow, you've had COVID for 2 weeks. I haven't been able to smell anything. Well, you should have realized since you weren't able to smell anything. Probably can't taste anything because of that. I probably should have known that. But hope you're doing better there, Timothy. Alright, anyways, let's go. A 12-year-old girl remained missing, and officers late Monday still have no suspects nor motives in the brutal murders of a Keddie. Let me see if okay. Of a Keddie woman, her son, and his friend in a cab. A woman, her son, and the son's friend in a cabin in this peaceful old resort community. Missing is Tina Sharp. That's this girl right here. I think she might have been like a target in this case. A little bit like that one girl, I couldn't remember her name earlier, but she was abducted from her home. The parents were killed, and then she was taken somewhere, and then she was still alive for a while. I mean, she was alive, and then they rescued her a month later. That was kind of a big case. How about, hey, let me just go through the case. I don't want people talking about what they've heard about this case while we're trying to go through it, because we haven't got through those points. We always got people, oh yeah, I've heard about this. Ooh, let me tell you everything about it. Well, let's just work through it the way we do it, and let's see what happens at the end, all right? Missing is Tina Sharp, her 14-year-old sister, Sheila. Early Sunday, found their mother, Glenna, 36, and brother John, 16, along with his friend, Dana Hall Wingate, 17, bound, bludgeoned, and slashed to death. So they were tied up, and then they were bound and slashed to death in Sharp's modest 4-room cabin. To be honest, we're still going in circles with this, said Sheriff Doug Thomas. There's not even a logical place to start. So we're following every lead, literally hundreds. He said the FBI has been brought in to assist in the search for the missing girl, which is assumed to be a kidnap case, and painstaking autopsies were begun Monday by pathologists at University Medical Center. They're going at it piece by piece, inch by inch. They don't want to miss a thing, said Thomas. No cause of death has been announced by late Monday, but Thomas said all three appeared to have been repeatedly bludgeoned and stabbed. A claw hammer, butcher knife, and steak knife, all covered with blood, were found at the scene, Thomas said. He said the death scene, so maybe those were all used to kill them, and they were items that were already at the house, so you would just leave it there. Were found at the scene, Thomas said. He said the death, and this is before anybody knew about DNA or anything. He said the death scene was especially bloody, and holes apparently made with the knives had been hacked into the blood-spattered walls. He said the death scene was especially bloody, and holes apparently made with the knives had been hacked into the... So somebody just sort of started poking the walls with the knives. Blood had been smeared on the inside knobs of both of the front and back doors and on the outside front doorknob. Thomas said evidence indicates the three were killed and the girl abducted sometimes between 11 p.m. Saturday and perhaps 2 a.m. Sunday. One of the greatest mysteries here is, how did one person subdue 3 adults? Were there more than one? Were all 3 killed at the same time? Yeah, I mean, if you have a gun, again, that's how you subdue people. Were all 3 killed at the same time, Thomas asked. Further heightening the mystery, Ricky 9 and Greg 5 slept through the carnage, and none of the neighbors heard an untoward sound during the time of the killing were thought to have occurred. Thomas said it's possible that the victims knew their killer, but an investigation of the Sharps' acquaintances, including 2 men who were friends of Glenna Sharp, have turned up nothing. And you see how now that I'm reading, it just went it's amazing every time. Let's see. Thomas said Sharp apparently moved to the Quincy area about a year ago from Connecticut, where her husband is stationed in the Navy. She moved to Keddie in November. She was not believed to have been employed, Thomas said. Keddie, a spacious 3-shaded resort with cabins, a hotel, a restaurant, bar, and dormitory, was built on the Western Pacific Railroad in the heyday of travel. Now new owners have taken over and are bringing the old spa back to its former appearance, only with 32 cabins rented out at $175 and up per month as permanent residences. $175 a month, jeez. Les Hogenbaum, one of the owners, described the Sharps as quiet family. They kept to themselves. The kids are good kids. It hurts just to think of this. Despite blossoming fruit trees, a bright blue sky, and balmy air, the tragedy had placed a pall of silence over Keddie's pine-scented trees. Yeah, so I guess it kind of, like, it's right in there. Let's see, that was the first article. And this is just, well, this is actually the 13th. So this will be the first one. It would have been the first one. A woman, her son, and friend had been stabbed to death in the woman's home at nearby Keddie, and the woman's 12-year-old daughter has disappeared. Plumas County Sheriff deputies identified the dead Sunday as Susan Sharp, 36, her son John, 16, and a friend, Dana Wingate, about 17. Volunteer searchers combed the woods around the community late Sunday for signs of the missing daughter, Tina. The bodies were found by Sheila Sharp, also a daughter of the dead woman, who had spent the night next door at a friend's house, authorities said. So maybe she was at, like, cabin 26. Authorities said they had no suspects. Tina was described as slight, with light-colored eyes, shoulder-length hair, and appearing younger than her 12 years. Tina was described as slight with light-colored. She seemed like she looked older to me than that. Sheriff Doug Thomas said 3 young boys slept through the slangs, unharmed, in an adjoining room. He said there were 2 sons of the victims, aged 5 and 9, and a neighbor boy about 10. Bloody knives hammers were found near the bodies, and the bodies were found and the bodies were bound. So they were bound, they were stabbed, they were like a claw hammer. I mean, just brutal. It wasn't known whether more than one assailant was involved. Thomas said it was the most heinous crime in Plumas County since a family murder in the Chester area 20 years ago. Thanks, Michelle H. And yes, you guys, if you guys can help support the channel, we're definitely going to need to have a better night tonight to try to get this month going along. So if you have the ability to, yes, I'm reading, and that usually is the moment where the support for the channel drops off the face of the earth. But if you guys can make it so tonight it isn't like that, I would appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's see. It says Plumas County workers began an intensive search today in the area around Keddie cabin where 3 people were slain, while the sheriff says he thinks missing 12-year-old girl was also killed. It's just a feeling I have. She hasn't turned up anywhere else, so I'm afraid there's a chance she could have been killed in the area. Tina Sharp has been missing since the bodies of her mother, brother, and brother's friend were found slain 3 days ago. Autopsies showed Tuesday that the 3 were bludgeoned to death and 2 were also stabbed, Thomas said. He said there are still no known motives or suspects in the case. I don't know, I'm trying to focus on the actual show, what we're, not the prices. Alright, this is on the 16th. Report on killings awaited. Investigators awaited laboratory reports today in hopes of finding clues to the brutal stabbing murders of a woman, her teen son, and his friend, and the disappearance of her 12-year-old daughter. And a hard-pressed Plumas County Sheriff's Department is attempting to solve the crime while continuing to do their normal jobs of patrolling the 2,566 square miles the county encompasses. The bodies of the murder victims were found bound Sunday in the blood-spattered front room of the woman's small cabin in the tiny mountain resort of Keddie, 8 miles north of Quincy. Hey, thanks so much, Tina Humphrey. There we go. That'll get us moving forward. Appreciate that. Plumas County Sheriff Doug Thomas said he was assuming that the missing girl, Tina Sharp, was kidnapped. Quincy has no city police officers, and Thomas and his 33 deputies are in a mandatory overtime work situation. Overtime, that says backed up by the State Department of Justice. An FBI agent was assigned to search Monday while pathologists began painstaking autopsies at the University Medical Center. They're going at it in pieces, or they're going at it by piece, inch by inch, Thomas said. They don't want to miss a thing. All the effort is concentrated on finding who killed Glenna Sharp, 36, her son John, 16, and his friend Dana Hall Wingate, 17, in the modest 4-room cabin where Sharp lived with their 5 children. The 13-year-old girl is presumed to have has been kidnapped, and so, does it say? No, it says 12, it looks like. It looks like 13, but the 12-year-old girl is presumed to have been kidnapped and possibly killed by the murderer. Late Wednesday, Thomas said there were still no suspects, no plausible motive in the crime, nor had any sign of the missing girl turned up. Evidence indicates the 3 were repeatedly bludgeoned and stabbed, and the girl abducted sometime between 11 p.m. Saturday and 2 a.m. Sunday. One of the greatest mysteries here is how did one person subdue 3 adults? Were there more than one? Well, maybe they were sleeping. Were all 3 killed at the same time? This is the same thing they have with Brian Koberger. Thomas asked of the crime, which he called the most brutal in Plumas County since grocery store owner Gard Young and 3 children were slain in 1952. It's not something you expect to happen in a place like Plumas County, but you know it can happen. Thomas said he had all the men in his department working overtime on the case. I'd hate to think how much overtime this is going to cost. Who gives a shit? In Keddie, investigators recovered a butcher knife, a steak knife, and a claw hammer as the murder weapons. The weapons were covered with blood, and holes apparently made by the knives had been hacked in to the blood-spattered walls. I mean, was that just sort of like they just did that out of rage, or were they missing, like they were trying to stab the people and missed and then went into the walls? It sounds like they just think that they stabbed into the walls. Blood spatter wall. Blood was smeared on the inside knobs of both front and back doors and the outside front doorknob. Thomas, 41, who is in charge of the investigation, has been sheriff since 1976. Before that, he served as a sergeant and investigator on the Plumas force and a deputy of Stanislaus County. All right. So that was the 16th, and then we're moving to the 21st. Search halted in Plumas for missing girl. A search for a 12-year-old girl missing since her mother, brother, and another boy were found murdered more than a week ago had been called off. Plumas County Sheriff Doug Thomas said Monday the effort has just been fruitless. The girl, Tina Sharp, was missing when her sister, 14-year-old Sheila Sharp, discovered the bodies of their mother, brother, and one of her brother's friends when she returned home from an overnight visit April 12. Glenna Sharp, 36, John Sharp, 16, and Dana Wingate, 17, were killed at the Sharp home in Keddie, a small town in Feather River Canyon, northwest of Quincy. Yeah, so I did this thing where I did an overlay here. Let's see, where is it? I think it's already on. Yeah, so it's right here. So this is where the cabins are. If you turn it off, you can see everything's, how everything's perfectly lined up. The colored roads with the actual streets that are below it on Google Earth. See that? So cabin 28's like right there. We make that disappear, then should be like right in that area, right where there was GPS coordinates that were online somewhere. So that means if you go about right here and then turn around, they probably were right here at one point. Like maybe there was a cabin right there. It's hard to say exactly, but I mean, this is just like a place kind of like, you know, a smaller version of Sun River, Oregon, and Central Oregon. Same sort of trees, yeah. Just a nice little resort area there. It's not really a town. It's a place where you could rent a cabin. So it's right down there. But we stalled again, you guys. If you're out there and you can help support the channel, I would appreciate it. Maybe do the buy me a coffee, something like that. Let's see what it looks like from down. There. I don't know if the whole place has street view, but let's see. It goes up here, and then that's it. So I guess even right here you could take a look. So it would have been right here. They probably tore down the house at one point. I think it was right in there. Okay, I think we just did that one. Then we're on to the 29th. No clues yet in Plumas. Rumors and theories are rampant, but authorities still don't have any concrete suspect or a motive in the April 12th triple slaying at Keddie in Plumas County. Neither do to the authorities. know where Tina Sharp, the missing daughter of one of the victims, is and are considering her as a possible victim. According to Plumas County Sheriff Doug Thomas, the possibility that Tina Sharp, 12, is still living is dim. We don't know if she is, of course, Thomas said Monday, but it's been a long time now since the murders, and our searches haven't turned up a single trace of her. So I would think that she had a better chance of being alive if you hadn't found her near there, right? Hey, thanks, Lisa Valenzuela. The autopsy was performed early last week at the Sacramento County Coroner's Office, Thomas said. The autopsy was performed there so that State Department of Justice criminalists could take evidence from the bodies. That's what Paul Holes is, a criminalist. They kind of study it's different. They're kind of like sort of a detective, sort of work independently, go through the whole, they kind of profile, all kinds of stuff. Thanks, Allie Cake. Other details surfacing around the murder tends to compound the situation, Thomas said. Wait, where were we just now? We were up here already? I think I was still over here. Oh, looks like I switched over to here when I needed to keep going down. Okay, hold on. While there are no major changes in the case, details are beginning to rise. There's speculation the boys went at a party, but so far no one has come forth with the exact information, Thomas said. We figure that people at the party are afraid to come to us because they think they'll get arrested or something. This is a little bit like that one that we did. Also, I think it was in California with the girl whose car went into the water, remember? We want them to know that we're investigating a murder here in what might have been a beer party. We need someone to come forth, and we don't want them to be afraid. Rumors that the murders involved an occult or devil worshippers are just that and have no merit, Thomas said. See, even back then, they had the same crazy people that follow the Delphi case, the Idaho 4, etc. Thomas reiterated, there is no indication at this time that the murders were related to drug traffic. And that also shows up every single time, too. Yeah, even in the Idaho 4 case. Oh, they're selling drugs out of there, and Koberger went there to pick up some drugs, and maybe they... Okay, we've gone through the house several times with a fine-tooth comb, and there was absolutely no traces of drugs. Blood tests from the victims have not been returned, so authorities do not know if the victims had been drinking or using drugs, Thomas said. Preliminary autopsy results showed that the victims died from multiple stab wounds and blows to the head. 2 knives and a hammer believed to be used in the slaying were found at the residence by the sheriff's department. The autopsy was performed early last week at the Sacramento County Coroner's Office. Other details surfaced around the murders tend to compound situation, Thomas said. 2 children were sleeping in an adjacent room and never heard anything. Isn't it possible that these people were already sleeping, though, was there a big battle going on in the house? Although County Deputy Coroner Doug McAllister noted last week that there were no signs of a struggle. See, there you go. That's what I'm saying. Like, they could have been asleep. The home is within 15 feet, and if they were drinking, it's just like the Idaho 4 case with, they're not able to defend themselves because they've been drinking, and there's other people there that survived. Other homes are very close to the Sharps, and not one of these residents heard anything either. Hey, thanks, Chris Cunningham. Appreciate all your work and the way you give back so unselfish. Yeah, well, it's hard now. I'd like to be able to give back. This month, at the rate we're at now, I can't give a nickel. That's the sad part. That'll be the first time ever. So I need your guys' support. Like right now that since I've been reading, the support for the channel dropped off almost instantly. And this is kind of what we always did. We'd go through the old newspaper articles, and I think it's interesting because you get to see what people were thinking at the time. But unfortunately, you need all the bells and whistles and, just go over all the stuff that everybody else has already gone over, and that's what everybody likes. I like to try to find stuff that you don't generally hear people talking about. Thomas reiterated there's no indication at this time that the murders were related to drug traffic. Yeah. One man in the neighborhood was up until 2 a.m. and heard nothing, and several people taking walks during the night passed right by the residence with the same silent results. There are various possibilities as to what happened, but Thomas said there's no positive evidence to prove any of them. It is possible that the victims knew their slayer, Thomas said. He noted earlier that there were no signs of forced entry into the home. I mean, that'd be kind of weird if they were already there partying when the other kids went to sleep and the one girl went over to the neighbor's house. Tina Sharp came home that evening at 9:30. So Tina got home at 9:30, but authorities are unsure where she had been, Thomas said. She reportedly went to bed shortly after her arrival from information gathered from other... So that's sort of interesting, right? It's almost like she was the target of the people that went to that house. Hypnotism has been used in the investigation, Thomas said, because this often brings out knowledge from people that would not surface when they are conscious. Other information shows that only one of the 3 victims was gagged and only one had a slit throat, but Thomas declined to expound on which victim received treatments. Thomas said that a 2-day intensive search of the Keddie area by 4 dogs, dog teams turned up absolutely no trace of Tina Sharp. Meanwhile, rumors have hampered the investigation. The sheriff said there have been several supposed sightings of Tina Sharp, but they have been bogus and cut into valuable investigative time. Thanks, Pauline Buckles. While chasing one of the bogus sightings last week, Thomas showed a picture of Tina Sharp to a man who informed... While chasing one of the bogus sightings last week, Thomas showed a picture of Tina Sharp to a man who informed him that she had been found. The rumors that she had been found hurt because people tend to stop looking out for her, Thomas said. The investigation continues with the FBI and now 3 DOJ agents. That's of California. Another DOJ agent may be added, Thomas said. We talked to a lot of people and we've got a lot more to go, Thomas said. There's a lot of questions still that no one has answered. So that was April 21st, and then this one is... I think we just did that one, right? Yeah. All right, so that one was April 29th. And then we go up to May 6th. Hey, thanks Tina, Sandy, Lisa, and Rubicon for the coffees. Autopsy results from the 3 people brutally slain in Keddie 3 weeks ago reveal no traces of illegal drugs or alcohol, according to Plumas County deputy. 3 people brutally slain of illegal drugs, so they had no alcohol in their system. Man, okay, well that's... They probably were sleeping then. The autopsy was done in Sacramento County for the benefit of California Department of Justice. It did not determine exactly how long Glenna Sharp, 36, her son John, 15, and friend Dana Wingate, 17, had been dead. Well, I guess, there must have been food in their stomach. The official cause of death for Sharp youth was stab wounds around the neck area. Wingate officials' death cause was severe trauma to the head and strangulation. Mrs. Sharp died officially from multiple stab wounds on the upper part of her body. Officials have said in the last 3 weeks that the deaths were probably due. Wow. Look at it. It goes from right here, were up to there. That's ridiculous. Look at that. Weeks that the deaths were probably due to multiple contusions and stab wounds on the victim. A bloody hammer and 2 knives were found at the scene of the crime, April 12. To this point, strangulation had not been mentioned. Murders because she had been... Wait. So that skipped now? April 12th, the point strangulation had not been mentioned. And then does it go here? Meanwhile, sheriff deputies and DOJ men continue to work on the case with no arrests to date. They're also still looking for Tina Sharp, 12, believed dead, and possibly a 4th victim of the murders. I mean, have you ever seen anything dumber than that? I mean, like the way they've laid out this page. How would you know how to do that? The murders, because she had been missing since the night of April 11th. We're still following leads. Have you guys been following what I've been reading here? It goes to right here. No, it goes to right there, then up here, then there, then right there. We're still following leads up, which make this thing more bizarre as we go along. Let's see. Yeah, they probably had it all the right spacing, but then just laid it out incorrectly. Pretty weird. All right, so then that was May 6th. Now we're on to May 22nd. And apparently they've got like some sketches, these people over here. The Plymouth County Sheriff's Office Thursday released composite drawings of 2 persons who might be able to help answer questions in the unsolved killings and at Keddie 6 weeks ago of a mother, her son, and the son's friend, along with the disappearance of a daughter. We want to talk to these guys, said Sheriff Doug Thomas. We believe they have pertinent information that can help us in the case. They were seen in Keddie that Saturday, but no one knows who they are. He stressed that they are not suspects in the case. Early April 12th, the day after the 2 were seen in Keddie, Glenna Sue Sharp, 36, her son John, 16, and his friend Dana Paul Wingate, 17, were found slashed and bludgeoned to death in Sharp's cabin. Her 12-year-old daughter, Tina, has not been seen since. Thomas said he still has no suspects or motives in the case, but at the same time, the investigation has not reached an end. We're still going ahead here at the end of the 6th week, said Thomas, and the interesting thing is the guys working with the investigation feel good about it. We feel this case is going to be solved. He said the 2 men his office wants to interview were seen in Keddie, but their names are not known, nor is it known if they were traveling in a vehicle. They were described as white males who were wearing denim jackets and gold-framed sunglasses. One is described as 30 to 32 years old, 5'6" to 5'10", of medium build, with a black mustache and a black, greasy hair comb back. His sunglasses were light enough to reveal his eyes. The other is described as 28 to 30, between 5'11" and 6'2", of medium build with dark blonde hair slightly curled outward on the ends. His sunglasses obscured his eyes. So there you go. There's the sketches. All right, you guys. I'll try it again. If you're out there and you have the ability to help support the channel, I would appreciate it. Trying to get the month going again. I guess I'll show my thing that I always show over here. This channel, this is what we've tried to do over the years. Other channels don't give a nickel. So we've given $22,000 in 2020, $42,500 in 2021, $62,250 in 2022, $57,350 in 2023, $49,000 in 2024 as it started going down, and we've only been able to do $1,500 so far this month. But as you can see, the grand total is $230,000 since January of 2020, and those are for our scholarship fund. Currently, this is our second year. We do have, oh yeah, by the way, I do have something regarding that. So it says, congratulations, let me go to this screen. Congratulations, the Fallen Freak Scholarship has officially been awarded. We're excited to share that Grace, Drew, and Astrid have been notified, and our award team is already working with them to ensure the funds are dispersed smoothly. Your generosity is truly life-changing, and we are so honored to partner with you in this mission. If you want to share your impact with others, feel free to share your scholarship winners page. So I guess there's a page right there where we could take a look at. You're also welcome to share your feedback here, whether it's praise or suggestions. We are always looking for it. So anyways, so that's the thing, everybody. So when we keep having these nights where we're just absolutely, everyone's like, yeah, forget it, yeah, maybe some other time, yeah, next time, Gray. We're just not going to be able to do this anymore. All right, we've given $12,000 out in scholarships the last 2 years, and we've also given almost $100,000 to a DNA fund for identifying Jane and John Does. So if you're out there and you can please help support the channel, we do this nightly where people support the channel, and that's what allows us to do what we're doing. Okay? So I'm not saying it like, oh yeah, here's Gray again, here's Gray again. I'm trying to get you guys to realize what we're doing. All right? So I need your guys' support on a nightly basis to be able to continue to do this. All right? Do you guys hear what I'm saying? All right? It gets really frustrating. Where is the... let me see if I can... you received a note from the winner. Oh, it says, hi, Grant Hughes Investigates. We hope you enjoyed your experience with Award Fallen Freaks. You received a note from gratitude. Let's see. I'll read Astrid's message. She said, where is it? Astrid said, thank you so much for everything you do and the scholarship. This alleviates some stress from my parents and me about my tuition. There you go. All right. I'm just looking at it on a different page. Let's see. Where is the one that they said they just sent? All right, guys. So let's get going. Let's help support the channel. Pretty easy. All right, let's see. Meet the winners of the Fallen Freak Scholarship. So there you go. Astrid Martinez, Drew Hall, and Grace McCabe. There you go. You see that? They all got $2,000 so they can go to college in the criminal justice world. All right? Can you name another channel that does anything like that at all? And yet my channel's the one that got punished by the viewers out there, and the support is dropped off a cliff. Can you see how that could make somebody like me angry on a nightly basis? Yeah. All right. So can you guys please help support the channel? All right. Thank you very much. Man, absolutely insane. So that was May 22nd. So then the next time there's something in the paper, in our members only, I'll play the videos of the 3 winners. I have them out there. But you notice after I made that pitch, 0. You get it? So it's really, really, really frustrating for me. Hey, thanks, Alley Cake. There we go. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's like people don't understand the gravity, and we make such a big difference for so many different people out there. Like, we kind of kept Texas EquiSearch running for a while, because during COVID, nobody was doing any fundraisers or anything. We gave them like $20,000 during that time, which is huge. All right. Don't worry about it, Cindy. We try to get you involved, and you kind of just bailed on it. So don't worry about it. We just showed the winners, all right? All right, anyways, here's the sheriff asked deer hunters for help in Keddie case. With the advent of the deer hunting season, the Plumas County Sheriff's Office has asked all hunters to be on the lookout for the Tina Sharp, who had been missing since the slaying of her mother, brother, and a family friend at the Sharp home in Keddie on April 12th. According to a news release from the Sheriff's Office, anyone who discovers anything in the surrounding area or back country that could assist in locating a missing 13-year-old girl, Tina Sharp, who was kidnapped on April 12th this year during a triple homicide, should contact the Sheriff's Office. So kind of like in the Lyric and Elizabeth case, they're out there trying to, telling hunters to look out for bodies or a body. The release goes on to say that hunters should watch for items of value, which could include clothing, abandoned vehicles, or skeletal remains. The department is questioning anyone finding such items to report the finding, along with good description of it, to the department. And by the way, it was, let's see, Zozo and Plato, who pretty much go through all of the applications for the scholarships. All right, so you see Alley Cake up there was trying for a wave to get the support up for the channel tonight. So if you guys have the ability to, as you know what's at stake for this channel, I would appreciate your guys' support so that we can continue to do what we're doing. It almost seems as soon as I said that, it died down, which is absolutely unbelievable. Hey, thanks Rubicon Girl. Look at that. Gifted 5 memberships to Efa M. Morgan, Lenny K, and there's Moofies. All right. Thank you. Right. We've given $12,000 in 2 years to students. All right. And we've already put 1,000 out of that 1,500 that we were able to do the first month, which is peanuts compared to what we've always done. Usually it's 3, 4, 5,000 a month. 1,000 went to next year's scholarship fund, so there's at least already got 1,000 in there. Yeah, well, the ones that mushroom hunters find the most, Gene, as we've talked about many times. Mushroom hunters are always looking down, and they're always looking at the ground. Hunters, however, aren't always looking at the ground. They're looking out for deer, etc., where mushroom hunters are always looking at the ground. So I think per capita, mushroom hunters find more bodies than hunters do, by tremendously more. Like, it almost seems like every single mushroom hunter's found a body. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. How do you know, Gray? I look for mushrooms and I haven't found. Well, you might. All right. Thanks, Tina Humphrey. And thanks again, Rubicon Girl. Appreciate your support and generosity, as well as everybody else. Yeah. To some friends I have out there on YouTube land, but maybe didn't. Yeah, people don't, Like the Jodi Arias videos I made, somebody goes, wow, I hope they use those same kind of animations. And I'm like, I made those animations. Do you understand that? Like in the Jodi Arias videos, I made that entire 3D model of the bathroom that I used in the videos that I made. They weren't something that they created. In fact, like when I was watching Court TV and HLN at the time, I was laughing at how shitty their representations were on the Jodi Arias case when a lowly YouTuber was putting out and using a 3D model that blew away anything that they had. And had they just said, hey, wow, can we use some of that? Oh my God, their coverage would have been drastically different. 10 times better. Because you could show where every single camera shot was taken that was on that camera. No, it wasn't a giant shoe. It's just, that's how those cameras is. It's a wide angle lens. Her foot, it's not even a shoe, it's a sock. And her foot's just right next to the camera lens. And then her pant leg, and then Travis's head. And then way in the background was this small little foot, because it's the wide angle lens, which makes everything look tiny in the background. Anyways, I'm going to keep going on this one. But while I'm reading this, if you guys can please continue to help support the channel, I would appreciate it. We gotta pick up the pace. If we just want to have it all collapse, that's great. But if you think that we have something worthy that we're doing here, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Let's see. So Sheriff asked deer hunters. So they try to get people that are looking for, that are hunting, and mushroom hunters, etc., to look for bodies. Since the slang, the Sharp home is Keddie, in Keddie is what they meant to say, has been dusted for fingerprints by the DOJ, and portions of the home's walls sent to their labs in Sacramento while the home was sealed by law enforcement officials for several months. It is now back in the hands of the owner. Thanks, this account. I don't know what the back page, like, what does that mean? Let's see. Maybe it just needs to go to the end. 10, 8, 9. I'll just move on. I don't know what to go. They want people to look for bodies while they're hunting. All right, then this is now, it just kind of skips forward to 1984 in June. And then it says, the bones of a young girl who has been missing since a triple slaying 3 years ago in a remote mountain cabin has been discovered near Feather Falls. So let's go see where Feather Falls is. So that means she was obviously taken away from the area, which is crazy, right? So we'll just put it in general. Tina found over here somewhere. Might have been 18 months or so. Because there's some, I don't know. I think the bones were found much prior to this, I guess. I don't know. Well, I saw one thing that said 18 months, and then this is 3 years. So, let's see. The remains were identified as those of Tina Sharp, who was last seen on April 21st, 1981, the day her mother, brother, and a neighborhood friend were beaten and stabbed to death in their Keddie cabin. No arrests have been made in the case, and authorities say they have not determined a motive for the crime. The victims were Glenna Sharp, 36, John Sharp, 15, and Paul Wingate, 17, a neighbor. A baby who was in the house at the time of the murders was not harmed. Butte County authorities said the bones were discovered by a bottle hunter. So this is somebody, again, that looks at the ground. And they found, amazingly, they found the bones, not the bones, on April 22nd, which is one day after, like almost exactly 3 years later, right? Like 3 years and a day. The bones were taken to a county laboratory for analysis, where a match of dental records was made. So there's that one, and then the next day in the paper there was a longer one. Human remains discovered near Feather Falls. Did I say Feather Falls? Yeah. Oh, there. It looks like there's another one now. Hold on. There's that one. Okay, it's the same. Feather Falls, Feather Falls. So maybe there's an actual falls and then a town called it, but somewhere down in this area. As you can see, it's let's just kind of get a general idea. Yeah, so 30 miles away. Probably driving, it's more like 40. Because driving there, wow, so you have to take this Buck Lake. All right, let's just see what this says in here. Directions. And then Feather Falls. So they have it way, that's going to be really 96 miles because of that route. But it kind of looks like you could take these other back roads here. Wonder what happens if you kind of go like that. That's 81 miles. Man, you still have to go way around to get there, huh? Jeez. Yeah, so that wouldn't be the way you do that. So that's probably how you would actually do it. That's the shortest time-wise, I guess. So you'd have to drive almost backwards to go all the way down. You guys see that? See? Up like that, all the way around, then back up like that. Oh, thanks, Only Chevys and Tina. I guess I already said that. Humphrey for the coffees over there. That's crazy though. It's so far out of the way. So it almost makes you think you'd almost live there to do something like that. Why would you do that? Why would you drive all the way down and then sort of backwards? Wouldn't you just dump her body somewhere? But then you go. I mean, that's sort of telling. I wonder if there's a different way. Is there anything? Let me just. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you could do that route, but which is actually shorter amount of time. This one. And you're driving, but then that means you came all the way down here. Instead of just kind of going somewhere else, you go all the way back up into this area. A little strange, don't you think? Why would you do that? All right, we died down again. We're not going to get to a goal tonight. If you guys, we need more support for the channel. Thank you. The bones were identified as though, because right now we're at a third of a normal nightly goal, just so you know. All right. Human remains discovered near Feather Falls in Butte County have been identified as those of 12-year-old girl missing since a triple slang 3 years ago. The bones were identified as those of Tina Sharp, last seen on April 12, 1981, the day her mother, brother, and neighborhood friend were beaten and stabbed to death in their cabin. Plymouth County Sheriff Lieutenant Don Stoy said no arrests have been made in the murder case and a motive has not been determined for the crime. It's too early to tell if this will help our overall investigation, but it answers the question that we've all had whether she's alive or not, Stoy said. Thanks, Adeline. I don't know how to say that last name. My drop in the bucket. That's okay. Hey, it's better than a lot of the drops in a bucket that other people have done, so thank you. Stoy said the cause of the girl's death still hasn't been determined, but her remains have been sent to the State Department of Justice Laboratory in Sacramento for further examination. The other victims were Glenna Sharp, 36, John Sharp, 15, and Paul Wingate, 17. The bodies of Tina Sharp, the bones of Tina Sharp were discovered April 22nd by a bottle hunter near Feather Falls, northeast of Oroville, about 50 miles from Keddie. Let's see where Oroville is. Hold on. Maybe there's another Feather Fall. Oroville. I bet it's somewhere. It should be down there, though. Yeah, see, there's Oroville, and then... So, it is probably 50 miles if you drive up through here, you know? It just feels like... crazy roads here. But it looks like you could do this. Look, they're 2-lane roads that go all the way up. And obviously that would be quicker. Not quicker, but sort of a shorter distance, but maybe longer driving. I don't know. But so they say 50 miles. I think this is right here, though. "50 miles from Keddie, the bones were sent to a laboratory for analysis. For the first few weeks after the murders, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department had 8 investigators working on the case. By the time a year had elapsed, we would... it's interesting that a bottle hunter found. That means the body was likely just right off the edge of a highway. There's no way in hell a bottle hunter's out in the middle of the woods somewhere, right? So let's see if... so there was that Feather Falls, and then there was another one. Okay, this is Feather Falls right here, too. There's no road there, so that's not going to be there. So let's move this. Bottle hunters look for people who just throw trash out their window. Hey, thanks, Plato, for trying to let people know. It feels like I've already, I share to people what we do and everything, and it just, for some it doesn't, doesn't matter. Anyways, for the first few weeks after the murders, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department had 8 investigators. I'd investigate conservatively that we've put in more than 4,000 man-hours of investigation. A team of 8 investigators from the Plymouth County and Department of Justice plan to visit the Feather Falls area today. In addition to Feather Falls, we're going to talk to people in, Forbstown, Challenge, and the Strawberry Valley area. According to investigators, the slayings are thought to have occurred about 2 a.m. April 12, 1981. At 8 o'clock that morning, the murder scene was discovered by Glenna Sharp's 14-year-old daughter, Sheila, who was returning home after spending the night with friends. How fortunate is that? However, if she was quiet, she might not have been killed, It feels like Tina was the target, but then you sort of wonder, I mean, what if Glenna was there? But also remember how Tina got home at 9:30, so maybe she was somewhere where these people noticed her. Sharp's son Ricky, now 12, and Greg, 8, and a neighbor friend slept in a bedroom next to the living room where the bodies were found. So that means they were like 8 and 4 at the time. Or, no. Like, I guess 9 and 5. Alright, that was a 20. Then another, just 6 days later, another article. Obviously, when they found her body, it kind of brought it back into the papers. Yeah, well, either way, nobody's looking for bottles in the middle of the woods. You're looking for bottles right next to a highway, you know, or in a town where there's bottles, right? That's not true, Gray. What about those people who go camping and leave? Oh, God. You think somebody's going to drive 40 miles away and look for bottles at a campground when they're right there off the side of the road? When Tina Sharp could not be found following the April 1981 Keddie murders, lawmen feared that she too was dead. That fear was confirmed last week when remains of her body found near the hamlet of Feather Falls, so it is the town, in Butte County were positively identified. But what happened to Tina Sharp is uncertain, according to Plumas County Sheriff's Department Lieutenant Don Stoy. Stoy said that a Chico State anthropologist determined that the young girl died sometime prior to last fall when she was found, or sometimes prior to last fall. That means she was killed between April 12, 1981, date of the original 3 murders, and the fall of 1983. But authorities still do not know exactly when, where, or how she was murdered. The identification of the 4th Keddie victim, who was 12 when she disappeared, was a long and exhaustive process, Stoy said. It began April 22nd when a bottle collector came upon the remains at an area 5 miles above the town of Feather Falls. Stoy said it is possible to drive to the area in which she was found. Right, exactly. Butte County authorities were alerted and they searched the area, finding the top of a skull. At that point, they still didn't know what they had, Stoy said. The skull's top was sent to the Department of Justice labs in Sacramento, but a forensic dentist said he could not make any identification from it. Because of that, Butte County searched the area again the first part of the month. They found the lower jaw of the skull with some teeth in it. That was sent to the DOJ labs, and the teeth were compared to dental files of missing persons. The teeth matched the file of Tina Sharp, Stoy said. Apparently, Tina Sharp was abducted from the Sharp Keddie home that fateful evening. Investigators have theorized that the murder occurred sometime in the early morning hours of April 12, 1981. After daybreak that morning, Sheila Sharp, then 14, came home from a friend's house to find the battered and stabbed bodies of her mother, Glenna Sharp, who's 36 years old, her brother, John, 15, and his friend, Dana Wingate, 17. The 3 were found tied at the front door. They had been stabbed repeatedly and beaten with a hammer. After that, an extensive grid search of the Keddie area was conducted in hopes of finding young Tina Sharp. But it was not to be. Police followed leads on her whereabouts, most of which were sketchy at best. What baffled investigators at the outset was that no one heard the crimes, including late night strollers, people in a house just 10 feet away from the murder home, and other neighbors. At least 3 children, and maybe 4 were sleeping in another bedroom. I guarantee you a gun was used in this case. At least 3 children, not shot, but they used it to control everybody. At least 3 children, and maybe 4 were sleeping in another bedroom in the murder home. You know, it kind of reminds you of McStay. I don't know if you remember that, but McStay, he killed 4 people, bludgeoned them all to death. A mother, father, and the 2 children in the house, and he did it by himself. Now we'll be working more with Butte County on this, Stoy said. We'll continue talking to the people in Feather Falls area. He added that the results of tests on Tina Sharp remains could bring them more information to go on. Let's see. What baffled investigators at the outset was that no one heard the crimes. At least 3 children and maybe 4 were sleeping in another bedroom in the murder home, and they were not disturbed at all, according to Stoy. They have been questioned again and still can't remember being awakened or hearing anything. Crazy, right? All right, we're having one of those massive lulls, everybody. So if you're out there, if you can help support the channel, I would really appreciate it. Allows us to do a lot of great things, and it keeps me able to do the show. Hey, thanks, Ellen. Appreciate that for a can of coffee. All right, thank you. Just like, who else got me? Oh yeah, it was Rubicon Girl. All right, because currently we're at 75.56 on the, or actually 100 because of the 5 memberships on the show. All right. What do you guys think so far? It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's just like you got this house and there's a lot of cases that we can draw on to kind of think about what may have happened. Like basically, if you've been watching my channel for over the years, we're all criminalists, right? Because we have basically seen just about every kind and variation of cases and what people have been doing, you know. Maybe we could say poor man's criminalist, but you know, it's strange how you can, you know, kind of call on different cases. The McStay case was before any of this. I did those back in like 2014, I think. But you know, that one, you know, you had the killer, you know, goes into the home. He's been arrested and charged and everything. And he kills Joseph, his wife, Gianni, and I think Joseph Jr. or something like that. And, you know, killed them all with a hammer inside the house. You know, how did he do it? And they were all tied up at one point. Then he took their bodies and he buried them out in the Mojave Desert. And they were only found because a motorcycle rider was riding around out there just for fun, like, you know, motocross, and found a skull sitting there. All right, so that was 19. That last one, let's see. Did we go on that one yet? Oops. All right, well, this is 1995. Actually, I think there's another one here. This one's 1987. Search for Keddie killers continues 6 years later. The life Glenna Sharp had been living trapped in a failed marriage to a career sailor at a Connecticut Navy base was finally behind her. She had moved in late 1979 into a Claremont trailer park in Quincy, the town where her brother lived with his pine-scented air and snowy peaks. even shackled with 5 children. The slight 36-year-old must have felt that there was hope for a new start. That hope ended in blood-spattered violence in a Keddie cabin sometime between 11 p.m. April 11th and 2 a.m. April 12th, 1981. Between those hours, Glenna Sharp, her 15-year-old son John, and a 17-year-old friend Dana Wingate were bound and murdered with a claw hammer and 2 kitchen knives by an unknown killer or killers in their Keddie home. Sharp's 2 other sons, Ricky, then 9, and Greg, then 5, slept through the night unharmed in an adjoining bedroom. Her daughter Tina, 12, was kidnapped. Her remains were found in Butte County 3 years later. The carnage was discovered by daughter Sheila Sharp, then 14, on Sunday, April 12, 1981, at about 8 a.m. in the morning. Sheila spent the night of the murders at the house next door to the cabin the Sharps had occupied since November 1980. I like to read the recaps over time because they add stuff to it, but then it also ingrains it into your head. The tragedy remains unsolved, although conjecture and theory bounded on the streets of Quincy and in other nearby towns. Investigators are baffled. They wondered why neither the neighbor nor the boys sleeping in a room only 10 feet from the murder scene had heard anything. The strangest thing, said Plumas County Sheriff Lieutenant Don Stoy, who continues to work on the investigation, is that there is no apparent motive. Any case without an apparent motive is the toughest to solve. If you don't have a why to start with, it's difficult to determine who. At the time of the murders, then Sheriff Doug Thomas told the Sacramento Bee that the death scene was especially bloody and that the holes had been punctured in the blood-spattered walls with knives. All 3 victims had been repeatedly bludgeoned and stabbed. No sane person could have performed those acts, Stoy said. The 2 murdered boys were last seen on the corner of Lawrence Street. There we go. I gotta put those. Let's see. The 2 murdered boys were last seen on the corner of Lawrence Street and Highway 70. Lawrence Street and Highway 70. So that's down here. Is that Lawrence? Where's Lawrence Street? Is there one in Keddie? Yeah, so I think it must be in this town here. Okay, they were hitchhiking towards, so it's right here. Right there. That's crazy. So that means the 2 boys, 2 victims hitchhiking. God, did they get a ride from the killer? Towards Keddie. So they got a ride home somehow. That's pretty crazy. Right, so this is new information. That's why you read these other ones. So they were right here on this corner, and they were heading that direction. Because taking that direction, if you go, drive up like that, it goes right to Keddie up here. Yeah, I'm right where they are at. So they were just in this little town hitchhiking. So there you go. That's a new piece of information. And if you guys are out there, if you could please help support the channel. We've died again. Dead as a doornail. What else do you call it? It is a massive lull. Hitchhiking towards Keddie. The remains of Tina Sharp were found almost exactly 3 years after the murder by a bottle hunter Yeah, right. One day later. That's what I was saying. 50 miles from Keddie, by a bottle hunter, 50 miles from Keddie, forensic pathologists identified the remains using dental records. The people who died in cabin 28 at the Keddie have been characterized as typical and just struggling to get by, like a lot of other people. What is known about Glenna Sharp is that she was a private person who kept to herself. Those who knew the small, thin woman liked her. She had come to Quincy area to be near her brother, who lived there. Then after her marriage to James Sharp, a career Navy man stationed in Groton, Connecticut. She had had 3 boyfriends in her 18 months here, but hadn't become seriously involved with any of them. Well, maybe one of them wanted more or something. Who knows? She held a few part-time jobs in the Quincy area, but with 5 children, she was forced to depend on the welfare system as her major means of support. Thanks, Allie Cake. For the Sharp's life in a... Say no to lols, she said. Come on, you guys. Say no to lols. For the Sharp's life in a $175 a month 4-room cabin wasn't easy, and money was hard to come by, according to Undersheriff Steve Wright. Glenna Sharp saw to it that her children had warm clothes for the winter, even if it meant she had to sacrifice her own comfort. Both boys had had some brushes with the law. John Sharp had once broken into a house and stolen some marijuana, and his friend Dana Wingate was a ward of the court and on probation. Johnny was a little bit cocky. He fancied himself as pretty tough. He'd had his share of arguments with other kids. He was the leader type, and I have this image that Dana was hanging around with him, said Stoy. A person who knew Dana Wingate said that he was a real likable kid and a little small for his age and immature but pleasant to be around. Dana had also been in some trouble and was living in a group home in Quincy. Dana was a pretty typical high school kid. He enjoyed parties and had several friends. He had girlfriends. Johnny was one of his closest friends, and they spent a lot of time together, Stoy said. Other than living in a foster home, his lifestyle wasn't much different than any other teenager. He was mild-natured and enjoyed having a good time, Stoy added. Tom Frady, chief probation officer, said that after the murders, the probation department checked with Dana's group home and were told Dana had permission to visit John Sharp that night. Look at that. Allie Cake put up the wave sign and said, say no to lols. So you don't want to leave somebody hanging when they put up the waves. Okay? Let's see. So he was actually staying in Quincy. I bet you that's exactly what this town is. Yep, there it is. See? Quincy is the name of this town, and they were hitchhiking back home. The boys were last seen hitchhiking towards the Sharp home at 10:15 p.m. Oh, man. See, that's got to be related right there. They were seen hitchhiking home at 10:15. I mean, so that means that, who knows when they got picked up at... by the time they got home, it was 11-something. That's too close to the murders to not believe that whoever gave them the ride isn't possibly, that's just too close. Maybe they have an answer, but that's crazy. Yeah, we know. Cabin 28, I already said it 100 times. Let's see. And what difference does it make? Honestly. See, it's right here. See, I got the map overlay. I did it earlier. I went and found the map, overlaid it on top, matched up the pictures and everything, and cabin 28's right in there. See? So it's right in here. That means if you go down to Street View, right in this area, and turn to the left, it was, well, I guess it was right in here at one point. It's not there anymore, I don't think. All right, Alley Cake. At least you made your own wave. Man, you guys are terrible, I tell you. Alley Cake has to do her own wave because nobody else jumped on, even when they all knew what we do. Yes, they're from 1981. Yeah, we got over it. It may have been about that time that Glenna Sharp ordered her youngest daughter Tina home. Tina's sister Sheila was staying overnight. It may have been about that time that Glenna Sharp ordered her youngest daughter Tina home. Tina's sister Sheila was staying overnight at the neighbor's house, and Tina wanted to join her. Tina's mother wouldn't allow it. And Tina wanted to join her. Oh, man. That's too bad. Tina's mother wouldn't allow it. Glenna wanted her 12-year-old daughter home and accounted for that night. And had she stayed overnight, she would be alive, but you can't blame the mom. That's normal. Tina came home and watched television for a while. The following morning, she was missing, and no witnesses ever saw her alive again. Tina, too, was a private person. At least at times, she had secret hiding places where she liked to go to be alone. She required special attention in school. She liked attention, Stoy said. She received attention in school and liked it, and it encouraged her to do better. She had her she had her chores around the house, and she did, and God, who wrote this? She received attention in school and liked it, and encouraged her to do better. She had her chores around the house that she did, and she had a few special friends. In most respects, she was a very average 12-year-old girl, Stoy added. All right. Tina Humphrey. Oh, Jesus. Oh, there you go. You got Tina and Moofies, and then Plato got a coffee over here. Yeah, I can tell I got one of those. Need some liquid. And Rubicon girl. Again. All right. So Stoic continues to work on the case, and he thinks that eventually the killers will be caught. Although there are similarities between Keddie murders and other slangs around the country, the similarities aren't exact enough. There is also no basis to the rumors that the murder in Keddie was the work of a cult. Let's see. Drugs may have been involved, but autopsies reveal no trace of alcohol or illegal drugs in the systems of the victims. Some theorize that Tina Sharp was kidnapped for sexual purposes. I actually think that that's the better... I mean, these people might have come home with them and dropped them off, and they said, hey, you want to come in for a minute? And then, you know what? That seems to make a lot of sense, doesn't it? You got these guys that pick them up hitchhiking, and then they come home, and then the two kids are like, hey, you want to hang out a little bit? Maybe they're going to have a beer. Who the hell knows, right? I mean, what they're going to do. And then they were led inside the house, and then that's what happened. And Tina was the only sort of young girl in the house at the time. Had the other sister not been allowed to stay overnight, or was over at the other friend's house, the 14-year-old, I bet you she might have been the one that they took. Something like that. What I need is people to pay attention, not Ricola, okay? Ricola! Doors were ajar and the furniture in the room was knocked over. The phone was off the hook. Okay, so now there's more information. The evidence has not provided them with any answers, only theories and more questions. In cabin 28 on the morning of April 12th, signs of struggle were everywhere. Blood was spattered on the walls and smeared on both the front and back doorknobs. The doors were ajar, and the furniture in the room was knocked over. The phone was off the hook. So that sounds different than no signs of a struggle that we heard earlier. Investigators. Okay, do you mind if we just go over it, Adeline, without you? I told you not to go and start answering and trying to fill in everybody's questions. I just want to go over it the way we are going over it, okay? Jesus. And you already knew that from earlier, but it seems like you just kind of ignored it. Every time. It's unbelievable. Doesn't matter what case it is, there's always an expert that shows up and wants to let everybody know. Let's see. Investigators processed more than 200 pieces of evidence. This is at cabin 28. Investigators processed more than 200 pieces of evidence from the death scene. All the blood was determined to be that of the victims. Of the many fingerprints lifted from the scene, there are still some that haven't been ruled out as the killers. We totally dismantled the walls. Basically, when we were done, we had to replace the cabin on the inside, said Stoy, who was in charge of processing the crime scene. When a crime scene is processed, every item is examined. A bill lying on the floor, fabrics on the carpet, dust everywhere is examined and photographed as to its location. It's been said, and I agree, that there has never been a crime committed where there was no evidence left at the scene or taken from the scene. That's like that one rule they always have. Yeah, see, I knew you were a troll, Adeline. I knew you were a troll from the get-go. See, when you make comments like that, it's obvious right out of the gate. You're just one of those people pretending that you know, give me a break. All right, anyways, the California Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation assisted the Sheriff Department in the investigation. The Justice Department provided laboratory analysis and technical assistance. The Sheriff Department has accumulated a vast network of information, and if it had the manpower, leads that deputies could follow up would take them all over the country, into Canada and even South America. All right. Let's see. The FBI has studied the crime scene and used the information to draw up a psychological profile of the killer. Yeah. Well, maybe you're right about that. Maybe Adeline. Hey, but Adeline, just listen for a second. You know, at the beginning, didn't I tell you? And you said, okay, you got it. You knew exactly what I want. When I go over these cases, I want to go through it without somebody interjecting all their information that they've heard about over the years while I'm going over the case. And then when it's all done, then anybody can jump in and say whatever the hell they want to be talking about. But what happens is when you start doing that in the chat, people aren't really focused in on the new information or anything that we're talking about, because you're just feeding them information. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, and I was polite about it. But at the same time, you keep doing it. So I'm wondering why you did that, Adeline. Just a question, you know, just a question. It's a little strange, got to be honest. All right. Certain criminals perform certain acts in a certain way. The FBI tries to determine a profile of the individual by the way the crime was carried out, Stoy said. What it is a guess. It gives us a place to start. What we have is an educated guess about the killer, about the age, his appearance, the kind of car he drives. What does this is a profile. I wonder if this is from. Oh, this is interesting. I was just listening to an entire John Douglas Mindhunter book on tape when I was driving. So it was pretty good, I gotta admit. I wonder if that's what this is right here. Like the BAU. The FBI has studied the crime scene and used this information to draw a psychological profile of the killer. And that's when John Douglas, at this time, this is when he was there. This is when he was doing this. So his appearance, the kind of car he drives, what type of work he'd do, what type of area he lived in, what kind of entertainment he'd enjoy. It gives us a place to look for evidence, but it's useless in prosecution. It's a very specialized and new form of science. That's crazy. This is right when it started. Because no motive has been established in the murders, investigators are stumped as the rest of the community. We can offer all kinds of theories, said Stoy. My theory is probably no more valuable than anyone else's, but in my opinion, the influence of narcotics could explain the lack of motive. I think Johnny or Dana could have been picked up, there you go, look at that, picked up by someone in that state of mind, that they could have taken the killer home with them in order to secure a ride. Stoy thinks that due to the violence involved in the murders and due to the strength needed to subdue 3 people and abduct a child, the killers were probably male. The use of multiple weapons and the different methods used to bind the victims indicates that there was more than one killer. Or you had a gun and you forced one of the other people to tie up the other people. I think that someday the killer will be caught. It's hard to tie the last one up though, But that's what happened in the McStay case. Everybody was tied up and he was the only person. One piece of information could trigger the trap and bring everything together. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Yeah. Right. I don't know what they were talking about. I just said, hey, let's not talk about the... Never mind. It's just the same every single time. Doesn't matter what case it is. Maybe I shouldn't care, I guess. Maybe that's what I'll try to do. I just don't care if you guys don't mind that people are, on the side just randomly talking about the whole case and other facts that we haven't talked about, then go ahead. But I know that people have always said, hey, Gray, we don't want to, don't let people, spoil the story or whatever. Okay? It doesn't matter to me either way. If you guys don't care, then let me know. Okay? How about I'll do a poll? How about we'll do a poll right now and I'll never care again. All right? Let's do it. Let's see. What do we got? All right? Let's do a poll. I'm going to go start a poll. Do you mind spoilers? People commenting with spoilers in the chat. Okay. How about this? Do you want me to care if someone is putting spoilers in the chat? Okay. That's a better way to word it. Maybe everyone doesn't want spoilers, but do you want me to give a shit? Because I don't need to care. I can just keep reading and don't read the chat and not care. But when I see somebody answering and like, oh yeah, that's everything that was in the book, like they just explained something and well, we don't know if she's anybody's local, Cindy. Yeah. Okay, so the answer is no. Okay, so it looks like most people want me to just say, who gives a shit? Okay. Right. Well, that's kind of how it is, though. You know, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they say, oh, they found Tina later. You know, that's the kind of stuff, you know, you sort of want to get to that point. Hey, thanks, Tina Humphrey. All right, so do you want me to care if someone's putting spoilers in the chat? And the answer is no. Okay, so Adeline, if you back in here, just say whatever the hell you want to say, but I was always under the impression that everybody didn't want the spoilers. Because I don't give a damn, you know. I just see it and go, oh, wow, there we go again. Because you do care, so care. No. I'd rather, because it's not really that big a deal to me. You want me to care, but it's not a big deal to me, so if most people don't care, then I'm not going to care either. Okay? Right. Right, so there you go. But you can always tell when somebody has a little troll bias based on the comments that they make. They weren't really here, like their response is, you know, I don't even know the person, and they come up with their little, well, that's why you know, it has nothing to do with anything, okay? But they have the troll bias coming in. No, all of them. I'm not going to ever give a damn again. Okay, you guys? I'm just going to do it. And if you guys have to deal with people in there telling you every little bit while I'm trying to go through it, you just have to do it. All right? Because I'm sick of the backlash of people going, gosh, Gray, why do you care? I mean, they're just having a conversation. And okay, well, go ahead. Okay? All right? So just don't care anymore. Right. So it looks like, yeah, so 71% said no, I shouldn't care. I mean, they're saying, do you want me to care? And the answer is no, they don't want me to care. They just want somebody to blab away all the information in a case while I'm trying to go through it for the first time. And you know what happens is it gets everybody confused because you're out of order. And then it's like, well, hey, what about hey, Gray, did you hear about No, we haven't got to that point yet. Did you notice? Right. See, that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't mention something that you think is big. Right. Well, that's the whole point is that's why I don't even like covering cases that other people cover. Because if you miss the one thing that they think is big, then you'd suck. You know? And I just really, you know, I think it's dumb as hell, man. And I do it differently. I go through the newspapers and articles, etc., and just try to figure out what's going on. Do you see how close I was just right there when we finally figured out that they were picked up at 10:45? That's just so obvious now that they got a ride home, and the killers came into the house. That's why there was no forced entry, and they said that exact same thing later in the article. And so that allows you to use your common sense. How did you guys time out Adeline or something, or what? You don't have to time her out. Okay, Rubicon. All right. Well, anyways, I did a poll, and you guys have said that you don't want me to give a damn. All right. Even if, I mean, I was always giving a damn because I was telling the stories, and then you'd see people say, you know, like, hey, don't tell us the. I don't know what came first, me caring or what. Okay, you just have to send it to me later, so I'm going over this one. I don't know what case that is. Yeah, obviously, just share it to me later. You don't have to ask me in the chat. You just give it to me on Facebook, and then we talk about it. Because now people will go, hey, what case is that? And then it'll start a whole nother conversation. Hey, thanks, Richard Watts. No, we're not even close. I'm not even close to finished here. Yeah, so let me move on to June. Now we're 8 years later on June 14th, 1995. Let's just see what this is. I guess that one's just kind of a... We don't need to read that one. So then 1996, March 11th, Plumas County employed accused serial killer. So let's see what this one says. All right. When he lived in Plumas County in the mid-1980s, Robert Joseph Silviera was known as Tattoo, a quiet, courteous man who worked as a county employee and decorated the envelopes he mailed with beautifully intricate drawings. How long was that person timed out? I want to, I just want to see the pups. Hey, Paulina, come on. Can you just, your last nine or 10 comments have been. Today, Silviera is a suspect in at least 17 murders, including a grisly quadruple slaying. And so now this person's a suspect in that case. Plumas County Railroad town of Keddie that had been added to the growing list of homicides. Plumas County Sheriff Don Stoy said Saturday that Silveria, 37, is under investigation for the 1981, so he would have been 22 years old at the time, murder of Glenna Sharp, 36, John Sharp, 15, Dana Wingate, 17, and Tina Sharp, 12. A railroad drifter arrested March 2nd in Roseville and charged with the murder of William A. Pettit, Jr., 39, in Millsburg, Oregon. Silveria has reportedly confessed to the murders throughout the West. Also, Silveria claims he killed a man on a train. Let me go down here. Glenna Sharp and her son John and Wingate, a family friend, were found bludgeoned and stabbed to death in Sharp's cabin, while two younger Sharp children slept unharmed in the next room. Tina Sharp, 12, was missing for 18 months. See, now it says 18 months, right? You see that? See that? Okay, you guys. All right, hold on. I don't know if they're in the picture. Okay, there's one of them. There's Benny trying to eat something. All right. And hey, Paulina, I don't even know if you, how often are you ever even here? We've got 4 dogs now, okay? There's Benny. Okay, there goes Clancy. We've got these little vibrating, barking collars on him now. Because both of their barks are so high-pitched that if you're not paying attention, you hear one of them bark, you literally, break your neck. They're right there on the screen. So that's Clancy over there. He's going to take a piss. I can see it right now. I can see what he's doing. He's getting ready, and he's just a... Oh, God. Oh. He's doing something. He looks like he's getting ready. He's about to lift that leg up. You can tell, right? Oh, I guess he didn't do it. All right, good job. Yeah. Anyways, all right, back to the... I want to know why they think he's related now. His body was... Okay, and that says, a former Boy Scout who grew up in the comfortable home in San Jose, Silveria's earliest known connection with Plumas County was in 1979 when he was arrested for burglary and auto theft. He was convicted of vehicle theft and receiving stolen property in 1982 and sentenced to 3 years in state prison. Shortly after he was paroled December 27, 1983, Silveria became a Plumas County employee hired by former county fair manager C.W. Adams, he began to work at the fairgrounds in Quincy. In Quincy. Soon, however, he was moved to the Lake Alamo area to be a caretaker at the Chester Airport, in addition to plumbing gas from a county-owned airport tank. Silveria's collected fees for gas sales and for vehicles parked at the county facility. Silveria's airport job ended suddenly after then Plumas County Supervisor Albert Curley Glines stopped by the county building where Silveria lived. He was gone, and so was the county car, said Glines. County officials soon discovered they were also missing money. The receipts Silveria turned in for gas sales did not add up to the amount of gas pumped. Silveria was arrested at his mother's home in Arkansas and returned to California. I wonder if suddenly after then Plumas County Supervisor Albert Curley Glines stopped by. Sounds like he kind of just took off. All right, then 2001. All right, let's see if there is anything. It looks like this one goes on. So it might be a long one here. It was about 8 a.m. when Sheila Sharp discovered the bodies of her mother Glenna, brother John, and friend Dana Wingate. The bodies were bludgeoned and stabbed repeatedly April 11, 1981. Once the victim's throat was sliced. No, it says one of the victims' throat was sliced. It's hard to read, it's so faded. It was the work of what some believe was two people who used a pair of kitchen knives and a hammer. The 14-year-old Sheila's youngest sister Tina was missing when investigators arrived on the scene. The grisly discovery made inside a small room in a Keddie home set into a motion what is now regarded as Plumas County's greatest mystery and unsolved crime for 20 years. The murders remain a part of Plumas County collective conscious, officials say. And we're kind of getting on the home stretch here, so if you guys could please help support the channel. We are not even close again to reaching a goal, even after I've explained what's going on over here. So if you guys have the ability to, I would appreciate it. Thank you. It's unusual for someone to get away with killing 4 people, said Rod DeCrona, the patrol commander for the sheriff's department. DeCrona was a 28-year-old deputy for the department at the time of the offense, but like anyone who was involved in law enforcement at the time, the murders are on his mind. The brothers, me, he said. It's hard to read. It says, it bothers me, he said. It is still very creepy to me. I still feel uneasy when I drive through there when I go on patrol. When investigators arrived at the scene on April 12th, they were walking into a mess. Yeah, let me do this part here. See, I think it's interesting that they have this new information in here. The witnesses have said they saw John Sharp, who was 15, and Dana Wingate, who was 17, trying to hitch a ride sometime before they were killed. They were standing near the corner of Crescent Street and Lawrence Street in Quincy, near the front of the Gold Pan Motel, witnesses said. It was sometime between 9 and 10. Now it's a little different time, witnesses said. No one, however, could explain the boys' whereabouts from 10 p.m. to the time their bodies were located 10 hours later. That's always been one of the central mysteries of the case. If you could figure out who picked up the boys, then you might know who committed the murders. See, there you go. Huge. Our theory, put forth by investigators over the years, is that the people who picked up the boys are the people responsible for the homicides. They could have forced their way into the Sharp home when dropping off the boys or been welcomed into snack. Another theory is that the boys were given a ride home and that the people who provided the lift had nothing to do with the murders. Yeah, doesn't seem very likely, to be honest with you. Under that scenario, the boys simply walked in on the slaying of 36-year-old Glenna and were killed during the frenzy, or were killed because they were witnesses to Glenna's slaying. Meanwhile, there is evidence that the boys attended a party at the home of a well-known Quincy family in the hours before they were seen trying to hitchhike a ride to Keddie. Sharp and Wingate were well known in Quincy because they attended Quincy High School. One theory examined by investigators was that the killer went to the same party that John and Dana attended. There were reports that a pair of odd-behaving men, possibly from Orville, attended the party. See, doesn't that sound like that other case? Now, what's the one where the girl went into the lake? What's her name again? She drove her car, and they were all talking about these old guys sitting around at a party. And yeah. In addition, there is a witness who has claimed that others who attended the party committed the slayings. When investigators arrived at the scene on April 12th, they were walking into a mess. Yeah, Kylie Rodney, there you go. They were walking into a mess. John Sharp, Dana Wingate, and Glenna Sharp each were bound with a makeshift combination of wiring and tape. Those were the signs that the killer or killers had not planned the murders in advance, law enforcement officials have said. Makeshift combination. And they also used the weapons from the house. There were signs of a struggle. See, now they're saying there was signs. The walls were ravaged by a knife. There is other evidence that investigators have never publicized because public disclosure, even today, would jeopardize the resolution of the case. Investigators also found blood-covered kitchen knives and a hammer, items that were used in the killings. And of course, there was the missing Tina Sharp, whose remains would not be discovered until 7 years ago at Feather Falls. 7 years ago? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, like 14 years ago. That's inaccurate. Earlier, the terrified Sheila Sharp discovered the 3 bodies in the front room of the Keddie residence. She had spent the night at a neighbor's home, which was located less than 15 feet from where the murders took place, and was coming home. She ran screaming from the house, yelling for help from neighbors who called the sheriff's department and removed the 2 other children who were untouched through a bedroom window to spare them from having to see the murder scene. Wow. Among those who looked into the murders were the department's Doug Thomas, who was the sheriff at the time, and Ken Shanks, who would become sheriff when Thomas stepped down months after the murders. Other investigators, Harry Bradley and Mike Krim of the California Department of Justice, and Dick Donner and Larry Ott of the FBI, were brought in. The one constant through the years has been Don Stoy, a lieutenant in 1981, who eventually rose to the rank of sheriff for 8 years. Stoy devoted an indefinite number of hours to the Keddie case. Stoy, who retired 2 years ago, said the crime scene was frustrating because there was nothing to start from in terms of evidence. In most instances, a crime scene, even homicide scenes, will contain evidence that will lead investigators in some direction that will give them some kind of blueprint. Not in this instance, Stoy said. There was no apparent motive. It wasn't something someone went there to do, said DeCrona, agreeing with Stoy. There was only one fingerprint, a single bloody fingerprint, Stoy said. For the most part, however, the crime scene was useless, Stoy said, as was the Feather Falls scene where Tina was found 7 years ago. It wasn't 7 years ago. This is 2001. The murder was 1981, and her body was found 3 years later. So that'd be 84. So they're kind of like thinking it's 94 was the murder. That's just bull crap. Okay. How many people are going to type in Kylie Rodney, for God's sakes? All right. So anyways, I'm going to try one last attempt at trying to, if you guys could please help, so you support the channel tonight and help us get to a nightly goal. Back in town, trying to get things back up and running again, and we've really, had a lot of coffees and so forth, but on YouTube really struggled. So if you guys can help support the channel, that'd be great. Another problem was a lack of focus by the various investigators, he said. Everyone seemed to have had their own theory and went off their own without working together, he said. The only conclusion he reached, one shared by many others, is that 2 people committed the killings. There were too many people going in there in their own directions, Stoy said. There was not enough teamwork. In the end, the lack of unity may have prevented the department from solving the crime. Also hindering the investigation is the fact that the department could not access many of the high-tech crime-solving techniques used today, Stoy said. Is there anybody here? I mean, nobody's commented for like 10 minutes. And don't say, oh, we're just listening. DeCrona added that the profiling, which is the science of determining the personality and traits of the person who committed the offense based on crime scene evidence, just made it harder to solve, DeCrona added. When you profile this, it becomes even more convoluted, DeCrona said. Stoy and others say there were many potential suspects, but there was no hard evidence to link them to the crimes in any real way. A month after the slayings, the Sheriff Department released a pair of drawings of 2 possible suspects. The drawings appeared in the newspaper and elsewhere. And look at they do have the word DNA up here. But their publications did very little to solve the offense. The drawings were based on statements by one of the kids in the house who was not touched by the killers. At first, the child said they had a dream about what occurred, but a therapist would go on to say that that was the child's way of dealing with witnessing such horrible violence. Many potential suspects were interviewed or considered by investigators, but law enforcement found more dead ends than hope for success, they said. Former Plumas County resident Robert Silviera, who was arrested for and subsequently convicted in a nationwide railroad-related killing spree, once took credit for the Keddie murders. In fact, DeCrona and former department investigator interviewed Silviera, who was known throughout the country as the boxcar killer, after he made the claim. But law enforcement officials discovered that Silviera was in custody at the time of the killings. Okay, so that guy couldn't have done it. Can it be solved? Jeremy, now I can't read it. It's too blurry. All right, so that was 2001. Then we got a 2016. We don't know what you're saying, Isabella. I guess, all right. So this was 2016. Maybe this will be the quintessential article. Who knows? A gruesome 1981 murder case that has haunted rural Plumas County is once again in active investigation with new information about the quadruple homicide coming to light almost daily. After decades of dormancy, Sheriff Greg Hagwood said he believes analysis of evidence collected 35 years ago, combined with the fresh details, will lead to identification of a suspect or suspects. We're convinced there is an individual out there somewhere who knows who did this and how and why, Hagwood said. 2 suspects were identified and questioned in 1981. Both were released and are now dead, but Hagwood said he and Mike Gamberg, a retired deputy hired as a special investigator, have identified 6 people of interest. All are alive, and we know exactly where they are. The first 3 of the murders that shocked the community occurred late on April 11, 1981. Early the next morning, sheriff deputies were called to the cabin 28 in Keddie, a railroad resort town 5 miles north of Quincy. In the front room of the cabin, they found the bloody bodies of Glenna Sue Sharp, 36, her son John, 15, and Dana Wingate, 17. All 3 were found with medical and electrical tape. Medical tape, huh? And electrical tape. Sue and John Sharp were stabbed repeatedly, and Sue was bludgeoned with a rifle. That's something we didn't know. Wingate was manually strangled and bludgeoned with another weapon. So probably hit over the head, then strangled while he was already kind of knocked out. 3 young boys 2 of them, Sharp's sons, let's say 3 young boys, 2 of them Sharp's sons. So I go to B3. Were discovered unharmed in a small back bedroom of the cabin. They apparently slept through the massacre in the room several feet away. The bodies of Glenna Sharp, her son. Okay. Tina Sharp, Sharp's 12-year-old daughter, was missing. Her skeletal remains were found scattered in a remote area of the Plumas National Forest exactly 3 years after the Keddie murders. The grisly case has disturbed Hagwood for decades, he said. At the time, he was 15 years old, student at Quincy High School, where his classmates included John Sharp and Dana Wingate. So this guy went to school with these people. The 3 boys had spent the previous summer working together. Disturbed Hagwood. So was Hagwood? Now I can't remember who Hagwood was. That's kind of crazy. After decades of... Wow, so this sheriff, Greg Hagwood, was actually in the same class with these kids that were killed. How crazy is that? The grisly case has disturbed Hagwood for decades, he said. At the time, he was 15 years old, student at Quincy High School, where his classmates included John Sharp and Dana Wingate. The 3 boys had spent the previous summer together at the Plumas County Fairground. Tina Sharp was a student in Hagwood's mother's Quincy Elementary School class. As sheriff, Hagwood is now in a position to investigate the case. He hired Gamberg, who was a deputy in 1981. Hey, you guys, what do I need to do? Do I need to dance a jig in here to get us going? Got to get the super chats up tonight. Then Doug Thomas fired Gamberg 2 weeks before the Keddie murders. Gamberg said he was later reinstated but forbidden to work on the case. Why is that? 3 months after the Keddie murders, Thomas resigned to take a job with the Department of Justice in Sacramento. As special investigator, Gamberg took over a small room in the sheriff's office. So Gamberg was fired and then he came back at a higher position and began sifting through the evidence, which includes 12 or more boxes and freezer full of stuff, all stored in the various places around Quincy. He also obtained access to evidence collected in Butte County, where Tina Sharp's decomposed body was found. Gamberg confronted what he called a very poor investigation. It's not what was done, it's what wasn't done. Let's see. Using DNA, high-tech voice analysis, internet chat groups, and other tools not available in 1981, he began piecing together a case that is focused on determining who committed the murders, who assisted, and why. Among the documents Gamberg found are several apparent confessions by Martin Ray Smart. Smart and John Bubetti, who were sharing a cabin next to the Sharps at the time of the murders, were considered suspects. On the night of the crime, the night occurred, they showed up in the so they were in a Keddie bar in the middle of the night wearing 3-piece suits and sunglasses and acting weird, Gamberg said. Both had criminal records, and Bubetti had ties to organized crimes in Chicago. Smart's wife, Marilyn, was friends with Sue Sharp, who was counseling her to leave her husband, Gamberg said. Neither suspect was arrested. Smart died in Oregon in 2006. Bubetti died in Illinois in 1988. Shortly after the murder, Smart left Keddie and drove to Reno, where 16 days later he wrote a letter to his wife. The handwritten letter, which professes his love for her and alludes to some difficulties in their marriage, concludes by stating, I've said the piece, I've paid the price of your love, and now I bought it with 4 people's lives. Well, how does that buy somebody's love? Gamberg said the letter was overlooked and never listed as evidence. Other evidence includes Smart's apparent confession to a Reno veteran. Other evidence includes Smart's apparent confessions to a Reno Veterans Administration counselor who reported it to the Department of Justice. Officials worked on the case with Thomas. No written report was made of the counselor's statement, Gamberg said. During interviews with the Department of Justice, Smart mentioned that he was missing a hammer, which he identified as an all-metal tool with a blue rubber handle. That was almost a confession, Gamberg said. While several internet chat groups dedicated to the Keddie murders have kept speculation alive, and it was a Feather Publishing Company story in March that triggered new details about the case. Among the recent information Gamberg received was a report from a man who found a rusty hammer in a pond near the scene of the crimes. Gamberg found the hammer and has sent it to the Department of Justice lab. Is there a pond around here? I don't know. I don't see one. So I guess dancing a jig wouldn't even help, huh? Well, there's something. Hey, thanks, Matthew Ludovico. Sounds like Smart was accessory at least. Yeah, it sounds like he was around there. I hope when they chip all the rust off, we'll find a name, maybe a social security number, he said, jokingly. Off the hammer. He also received information that led recovering a knife near the old Keddie store. The rusty 6-inch blade has also gone to the Department of Justice for analysis. Hagwood and Gamberg said they believe several people were involved in the Keddie murders beyond the two dead suspects. The evidence has led them to think that the motive for the cabin murders was related to the abduction of Tina Sharp. Right. That's what I think. I mean, obviously she's the target because she was removed. If you kill 3 people in a front room and extract the little girl from a bedroom, a motive has to be attributed to her. Yeah, I think you can just say the motive that she was taken from the home is enough. There's no end to speculation on why, he said. The case is personal for Gamberg as well as Hagwood. Gamberg knew the slain teenage boys well. One of them was in the home the day before the murders. As a law enforcement officer with a commitment to resolving crime, he said he has always been bothered by the way the case was investigated, while he acknowledged that he now has access to tools that were not available in 1981. Tools that were available were simply not used, he said. You put 2 and 2 together, that wasn't done before, and you wonder why. Before hiring Gamberg to reopen the case, Hagwood said he had always been defensive of the efforts of law enforcement officers. Now I understand the speculation by so many people out there. You can't make this stuff up, he said. A $5,000 reward has been offered. So there's probably people thinking law enforcement's in on it because they didn't do what they should have been doing. Yeah, I'll just have the reader read this one. It's like 9 minutes.
On the morning of April 12, 1981, Sheila Sharp returned to her home at Cabin 28 in the Keddie Resorts in California from the next-door neighbor's house. What the 14-year-old girl discovered inside the modest 4-room cabin instantly became one of the most macabre scenes in modern American crime history and has come to be known as the gruesome Keddie murders. Inside Cabin 28 were the bodies of her mother, Glenna Sue Sharp, her teenage brother John, and his high school friend, Dana Wingate. The 3 had been bound by medical and electrical tape and had either been viciously stabbed, strangled, or bludgeoned. Sheila's sister, 12-year-old Tina Sharp, was nowhere to be found. Stranger still, in an adjoining bedroom, the 2 youngest Sharp boys, Ricky and Greg, as well as their friend and neighbor, 12-year-old Justin Smart, were found unharmed. They had apparently slept through the entire massacre, which had unfolded mere feet from their beds. The Keddie cabin murders. Plumas County Sheriff's Department, a back view of Cabin 28 where the family had lived for a year.
This is allthatisinteresting.com.
The Sharp family had just moved into Cabin 28 the year before. Sue had just divorced her husband and brought her children from Connecticut to Keddie in Northern California. The 6 of them, 36-year-old Sue, her 15-year-old son John, 14-year-old daughter Sheila, 12-year-old daughter Tina, and 10-year-old Rick and 5-year-old Greg, were friendly with their nearby neighbors at the Keddie Resort. The night before the murders, Sheila had slept over a friend's house down the street. John and his 17-year-old friend Dana had hitchhiked to a nearby town of Quincy for a party and returned sometime later that evening. Tina had briefly joined her sister at the neighbors before returning home to her mother, 2 younger brothers, and one of the neighbor boys, Justin Smart. When Sheila returned home early the next morning to find her mother, brother, and his friend bloodied on the living room floor, she bolted back to her neighbor's house. Her friend's dad retrieved the 3 unharmed boys through their bedroom window so they would not have to see the scene. The murders had been notably violent. Investigators were called about an hour after Sheila had discovered her slain family. Deputy Hank Clement was the first to arrive on the scene, and he reported blood everywhere. On the walls, the bottoms of the victim's shoes, Sue's bare feet, the bedding in Tina's room, the furniture, the ceiling, the doors, and on the back steps. The prevalence of blood suggested to investigators that the victims had been moved and rearranged from the positions in which they were murdered. Plumas County Sheriff's Department. The Keddie family about 4 years before the murders. Young John was closest to the front door, face up, his hands blood-covered and bound with medical tape. His throat had been slit. His friend Dana was on the floor beside him on his stomach. His head was badly damaged as though bashed in with a blunt object and lay partially on a pillow. He had been manually strangled. His ankles were tied with electrical wire which was wound also around John's ankles so that the two were connected. Sheila's mother had been covered partially with a blanket, though that had done little to hide her gruesome injuries. On her side, the mother of 5 was naked from the waist down, tightly gagged with a bandana and her own underwear secured with medical tape. She had injuries consistent with a struggle and had an imprint of the butt of an 880 pellet gun on the side of her head. Like her son, her throat had been cut. All victims had suffered blunt force trauma by hammer or hammers. They also all sustained multiple stab wounds. A bent steak knife was on the floor. A butcher knife and claw hammer, both also bloodied, were side by side on a small wooden table near the entry into the kitchen. It would take the police hours to realize that a 4th victim, Tina, was missing. The botched investigation into the Cabin 28 murders. When it was eventually discovered that Tina Sharp was missing, the FBI arrived on the scene. The sheriff at the time of the murders, Doug Thomas, and his deputy, Lieutenant Don Stoy, were not initially able to discern an apparent motive. The murders at Keddie Cabin 28 appeared to be random acts of cruelty. The strangest thing is that there is no apparent motive. Any case without an apparent motive is the toughest to solve, Stoy recalled to the Sacramento Bee in 1987. Further, the home did not indicate forced entry, though detectives did recover an unidentified fingerprint from a handrail on the back stairs. The cabin's telephone had been left off the hook, and all of the lights had been shut off as well as the drapes closed. More confounding is that the 3 youngest boys were not only untouched but allegedly unaware of the event. Even though a woman and her boyfriend in the cabin next door awoke around 1:30 a.m. to what they described were muffled screams. Unable to discern from where they were coming, they went back to bed. However, though the 3 boys initially claimed to have slept through the massacre, Ricky and Greg's friend Justin Smart did later say that he saw Sue with 2 men in the house that night. One reportedly had a mustache and long hair, and the other was...
See, that's new information right there, that there was actually... More confounding is that 3 youngest boys were not, let's see, but allegedly unaware of the event, even though a woman and her boyfriend in the cabin next door awoke around 1:30 to what they described were muffled screams. Unable to discern from where they were coming from, they went back to bed. So who's this? When you say allegedly, what does that mean?
Was clean-shaven with short hair but both in glasses. One of the men had a hammer. Plumas County Sheriff's Office composite sketch of the Keddie murder suspects. Justin reported then that John and Dana...
Well, let's see. However, though the 3 boys initially claimed to have slept through the massacre, Ricky and Greg's friend Justin Smart did later say that he saw Sue with 2 men in the house that night. I'm not sure. Let's see. One reportedly had a mustache. So that's why they had these sketches out early.
Entered the home and argued with the men, which resulted in a violent fight. Tina was then allegedly taken out the cabin's back door by one of the men. Allegedly, a lot of potential evidence was collected at the scene, but because this was pre-DNA testing, very little helpful information was found at this time. Sheriff Thomas called the Sacramento Department of Justice, which then sent in 2 special agents from their organized crime unit, not homicide, which struck many as odd. Immediately, the 2 lead suspects were Justin Smart's father and the Sharps' neighbors, Martin Smart and his houseguest, ex-convict John Bo Budabi, who was known to have connections to organized crime in the area. Both men had been seen in suits and ties behaving oddly in the bar the night before. Martin Smart later told the police that he had a hammer that matched the one discovered, and also that his hammer had gone missing shortly before the murders. Later that year, a knife was recovered in a trash can outside the Keddie General Store. Authorities also believed this item to be linked to the crimes. It would be another 3 years after the Keddie murders that Tina was found. A man discovered a human skull in the adjoining Butte County, about 30 miles from Keddie, in Plumas County. Near the remains, detectives also found a child's blanket, a blue nylon jacket, a pair of jeans with a missing back pocket, and an empty surgical tape dispenser. With that, the remains of Tina Sharp had been found, which made the crimes committed on April 11 or 12, 1981, a quadruple homicide. The Butte County Sheriff's Department soon received an anonymous call asking, "I was wondering if they thought of the murder up in Keddie up in Plumas County a couple years ago where a 12-year-old girl was never found." Meanwhile, Sheriff Thomas had resigned from the investigation 3 months in and taken a job instead at the Sacramento Department of Justice. His handling of the case in retrospect would be considered disastrous at best and corrupt at worst. I was told the suspects were told to get out of town, so to me that means it was covered up, Sheila Sharp told CBS Sacramento in 2016. The Sharps' home was demolished in 2004. Evidence at Cabin 28 ignored and overlooked. Remarkably, the tape of the anonymous tip regarding Tina was found sealed in case files, untouched by Plumas County Sheriff's Deputy. Until 2013, when the case was reopened with new investigators Plumas Sheriff Greg Hagwood and Special Investigator Mike Gamberg. In 2016, Gamberg located a hammer believed to be one of the murder weapons in a dried-up pond in Keddie. Further, it came to light that Marilyn Smart, Marty's wife and mother of Justin, had left her husband on the day of the murder discovery. Afterward, she provided Plumas County Sheriff's Deputy with a handwritten letter sent to her and signed by her estranged husband. It read, "I've paid the price of your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want?" This letter was not treated as a confession, nor was it followed up on at the time. Even though Marilyn admitted in a 2008 documentary that she thought her husband and his friend Bo was responsible, Sheriff Doug Thomas contradicted this and stated that Martin had successfully passed a polygraph test. It was later confirmed that Martin was close with this sheriff. In 2016, Mike Gamberg met with a counselor at the Reno Veterans Administration. The anonymous counselor told him that in May 1981, Martin Smart had confessed to killing Sue and Tina Sharp. "I killed the woman and her daughter, but I didn't have anything to do with the boys," he purportedly told the counselor. When the DOJ was alerted to this confession in 1981, they dismissed it as hearsay. The Keddie murders revisited. Plumas County Sheriff's Office probable murder weapons for the Keddie slaying discovered and submitted as evidence in 2016. Between them lies the forgotten tape of the anonymous phone tip left in 1984, rediscovered in 2013. The most widely accepted theory involves a love triangle between Martin, Marilyn, and Sue. It was believed that Martin and Sue were having an affair, and that Sue was supposedly counseling Marilyn to leave her husband, who she had said was abusive to her. When Martin discovered this, he enlisted Bo, his friend and known mob enforcer who had lived with the Smarts a mere 10 days before the Keddie murders, to take Sue out of the picture. This would account for Marilyn leaving her husband the day of the murder discovery. It would also explain why the Smart boy and the other Sharp boys in the adjoining room were spared. Additionally, it gives context to Martin's handwritten note that Marilyn gave to the Plumas Sheriff's Deputy. Some investigators who picked up the case when it reopened in 2013 tie the slayings into an even larger plot. To Gamberg, it is clear that the DOJ and Thomas run Sheriff's Deputy covered it up, is the way it sounds. He alleges that Bo and Martin fit into a larger drug smuggling scheme that involved the federal government. Martin was a known drug dealer, and Bo was connected to Chicago crime syndicates with financial interests in drug distribution. This might explain why the Sacramento DOJ sent 2 allegedly corrupt organized crime special agents, instead of agents from the homicide department. It also provides an explanation as to why the 2 lead suspects were seemingly given a free pass and told to leave town by Sheriff Thomas. Furthermore, it suggests an answer as to why this case was handled so sloppily, remains unsolved, and is seemingly not a priority to the Sacramento DOJ. What is known is that this 37-year-old crime is far from a cold case, as new evidence sheds light on what may have occurred at Cabin 2008 in Keddie, California. Although both Martin Smart and Bo Budebi are now deceased, new DNA evidence has pointed investigators to other suspects who may have had a hand in these murders, and who are still alive. It's my belief that there were more than 2 people who were involved in the totality of the crime, the disposal of the evidence, and the abduction of the little girl, Hagwood said. We're convinced that there are a handful of people that fit those roles who are still alive. After learning about the Keddie cabin murders, read about another unsolved murder, the Lake Bottom homicides that continue to confound authorities. Then, see if you can solve any of these 6 inexplicable unsolved murders. A former associate editor for All That's Interesting, Leah Silverman holds a master's in fine arts from
Well, there you go. Anyways, I'm going to take off, you guys. I had more to go, but yeah, I can go do something else. So thank you for being here, and thank you to, let's see, we got Uniquely Susie, retired hospice RN, Alicia Nelson. Sounds like, one of these days they might actually, I don't know if they'll solve it or not, but there's probably got to be some DNA evidence left there somewhere. Alicia Nelson, Allie K, Me, Angelia Wilcox, Me, Timothy Cecil, Michelle H, Tina Humphrey, let's see, Allie K, Chris Cunningham, 2 months, Pauline Buckles, Linda Howe, Alley Cake, Rubicon Girl, Moofies, Tina Humphrey, This Account, Adeline Prule, or however you pronounce it. Alley Cake, Tina Humphrey, Moofies, Rubicon Girl, Tina Humphrey, Richard Watson, Matthew Ludovico. And even after I explained to everybody what's going on, we didn't come close to reaching the goal yet again. Thanks on Buy Me a Coffee to, let's see, we had Rubicon Girl, and we had Alley Cake did a Venmo earlier, and then we had Lisa Valenzuela, Sandy, Tina, Only Chevys, Ellen, and Play-Doh. Yeah, there's more that I could, play. There's another person that wrote something up on it, but I gotta get going. Whenever it dies down like that, I can go do something else. It's just dead as a doornail for over an hour. So, all right, everybody, thank you for being here. I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. See if tomorrow's better. We don't know. Nobody has any idea these days. But another cold case with a struggle. You know, it's disappointing. But hey, it's good to be back. You know, good to be back. All right, everybody, thanks for being here. We'll see you guys later. Be safe out here. Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now. And during this whole time, I have not seen one person that is a crime dissector, flag rejector. I'm a certified human lie detector. Gonna get ya on a stretcher if you try and play me like an old projector. Crime sector is my nectar. Professor Gregel's gonna give another lecture. Crime collector, freak connector, and I'm always gonna be a pup protector. Fool deflector, interceptor, and I'm meaner than a spectre with a vector on his pector. With all respect, y'all, just remember I've a temple fucking check ya. I have no agenda, I'm no pretender, and I'll serve it to you straight without the blender. And in the end, I'm gonna send ya on a mission to reveal the true offender. Yeah, so I'll just get right back to work. All yeah, right, there's an article out there. It's 2 parts long. All right. In Plumas News. So if you guys, I'll play it, but it's going to be, it's like 40 minutes of playing, and I could be doing something else. But if you guys support the channel during it, I'll do it. Okay? It's just one of those things where I don't even know where to go anymore, because if I make videos, nobody watches them. If I do the shows, you guys aren't supporting the channel like you used to, and I don't know where to go. So if I play it, it's just sitting there, me playing it again, and there's no support. Okay, so I've done 2 hours and 40 minutes of show. But cut short, I mean not able to go over. Yeah, I mean I just it's another 40 minutes. Okay, and I could be doing something else. Is what I'm trying to tell you. I mean, it's bizarre how. I could do another 40 minutes, and and the problem is there's people like Malfi over here. He doesn't understand this channel for 5 years is, it just is what it is. Yeah. See you later, Glenn. So, I can play those the same way as long as there's support for the channel during those 40 minutes. But I've already asked for it. And I don't know what else to do. I got to go work on something else. All right. So thank you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Be safe out there. No, I'm not. It's not. There isn't really much more. I don't even know what these 2 articles say on it. All right. I don't know what they're saying. Nah, it's not true, Daphne. It just isn't true. It's the desire. There's nothing different. I know you say that every single time, but this just isn't true. I know it. Well, maybe this one, it does mention something about DNA more in it. So I guess I'll just hit play, see what happens.
Plumas News.
I'm going to go right down here.
The Sharp family's home shortly after the infamous murders took place in 1981. Note the sign on the front tree proclaims this was a home where a mom and her case file update is a new column featuring previous cases involving Plumas County. DNA. New evidence has surfaced in the infamous 37-year-old Keddie murders case, and more developments are anticipated. DNA taken from a strip of white medical tape consistent with that used to bind the victim's hands and ankles, and to cover the mouth of one victim, has revealed much as the Plumas County Sheriff's Office moves forward in its efforts to solve the quadruple murder case. A segment of tape containing identifiable DNA was found on the floor near the body of Glenna Sue Sharp, 36, in 1981, Plumas County Sheriff's Special Investigator Mike Gamberg said recently. Less than AMG decoding equal to async class equal to WP image 10,061 lazy. The DNA matches that of a known living suspect, according to Gamberg. He's had the DNA for several years, but it wasn't until recently that he obtained needed samples and found the match. Until now, lack of fingerprints and identifiable DNA left at the scene by the perpetrators has stymied investigative efforts. Those who were inside cabin 28 the night and/or early morning hours of April 11 and 12, 1981, were somewhat prepared, according to Gamberg. It's suspected that someone brought a hammer, the one recovered in a nearby pond in 2016, as well as using a hammer and knives found in the home. It's also believed medical tape was brought along, and there's some evidence that an 880 B&B or pellet rifle was there but was not recovered at the scene. Both Gamberg and Plumas County Sheriff Greg Hagwood believe that possibly as many as 6 people were involved in one capacity or another in the murders or the cover-up. Less than AMG decoding equal to async class equal to size medium WP image 10,058 lazy load source equal to www.plumasnews.com/WP content/uploads. Most of the suspects wore gloves, Gamberg said. Identifiable footprints were not recovered inside, apparently as the suspects bludgeoned and stabbed their victims to death. None of the suspects were injured or left their own blood at the scene. Every bit of evidence that can still be recovered is important to this case, according to Gamberg, as he continues to search for leads and re-interviews anyone linked to the Keddie murders. Those left dead at the scene included the mother, Sue Sharp, her son, John Sharp, 15, and his friend, Dana Wingate, 17. It's known that Sue Sharp was home with her daughter Tina, and her 2 sons Ricky and Greg. Justin Smart Eason, 12, one of 3 boys left alive in a second bedroom, was allowed to spend the night. His home was just a short distance away in cabin 26. He lived there with his mother and stepfather, Marilyn and Marty Smart, and his brother. It's known that John Sharp and his friend Dana were in Quincy and caught a ride home sometime between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., Gamberg said. Although it's been a mystery as to who gave the 2 teens a ride home, Gamberg has identified the individual and has interviewed her. Remembering when? It was April 11, 1981 when Sheila Sharp, 14, opened the door to her family's 2-bedroom cabin and discovered the bodies of her mother, older brother and family friend in the small living room. Sheila ran screaming back to the neighboring cabin where she had spent the night. This was cabin 27 where the Seabolt family lived. That family included James Sr., his wife, Zonita, daughters Elisa and Paula, and son, James Jamie Jr. At 8:05 a.m. Sunday, April 12, the sheriff's dispatch received a call from Jan Albin, co-owner of the Keddie Resort. She reported the possibility of a homicide in cabin 2008. The Seabolts didn't have a telephone. Someone from that cabin ran to the lodge and reported the crime. While the crime was being reported, Jamie Seabolt, Sheila Sharp, and possibly Zonita Seabolt helped the 3 young boys out a side bedroom window of the cabin. Deputy Hank Clement was the first to arrive on scene. When he opened the front door, he saw the bodies on the green carpeted floor, according to Gamberg. Although someone had covered the body of the mother with a blanket, it did little to relieve the horrific scene the teen and law enforcement encountered. Less than AMG decoding equal to async class equal to size medium WP image 10,059 lazy load source equal to. It was April 11, 1981 when Sheila Sharp, 14, opened the door to her family's 2-bedroom cabin and discovered the bodies of her mother, older brother and family friend in the small living room. Sheila ran screaming back to the neighboring cabin where she had...
Yeah, where does it say that, Cindy? That a woman gave them a ride? Where does it say that?
Deputy Hank Clement was the first to arrive on scene. When he opened the front door, he saw the bodies on the green carpeted floor, according to Gamberg. Although someone had covered the body of the mother with a blanket, it did little to relieve the horrific scene the teen and law enforcement encountered. Less than mg decoding equal to async class equal to size medium WP image 10059 lazy load sar equal to www.plumusnews.com/WP content /upload/2018/04 Keddie murders all xe 400x323.jpg alt width equal to 400 height equal to 320.
I guess it does say right there you interviewed her, so it was a woman who gave them a ride. How do they know that? Who gave them a ride? How would they have known that? I mean, a long time ago, the same people had theories that it was, those are the people that went in the house. So how would you have this right here? I mean, it does say that sometime between 10 and 1, although it's been a mystery as to who gave the two teens a ride, Gamberg has identified the individual. How? How would you have identified her?
3 src equal to https www. It was April 11th, 1981 when although someone had covered the body of the mother with a blanket, it did little to relieve the horrific scene the teen and law enforcement encountered.
Well, if she came forward, then they wouldn't have been speculating in 2001 that, hey, the person who picked them up probably took them home. You've already would have known, right?
Less than mg decoding equal. Dana was found next on his stomach with his badly damaged head resting partially on a sofa pillow. His ankles were firmly tied with electrical cord that linked him to John, whose ankles were also bound. Sue Sharp was found lying very close to the sofa. Although she was lying on her side, naked from the waist down, there's evidence that someone rearranged her from an indecent position. That's probably when she was covered. She was also tightly gagged. A blue bandana and her panties were used first, and medical tape then applied. Defensive injuries would be discovered on her arms. Lone pools of blood on the living room floor and on the sofa pillow indicate the boys' bodies were also moved and staged, Gamberg said. Blood wasn't confined to the floor and on or around the victims. It was discovered on the once cheerful ivy pattern wallpaper and on some bedding in the bedroom Sheila and her sister Tina shared with their mother. Blood was also found on the living room ceiling and furniture. The bottoms of Sue's bare feet and the soles of one of the boys' shoes were also covered in blood, suggesting they were mobile and stepped in it at some point. Blood was discovered on both bedroom doors and outside on the handrail of the steep back stairs. All three victims sustained brutal blows to the head with a hammer or hammers, and they were stabbed, sometimes repeatedly. An imprint matching that of the butt of an .880 rifle was also left on Sue's head. The throats of Sue and her son were cut. Dana suffered multiple head injuries and was manually strangled. The three other children present in a second bedroom escaped physical harm. A fourth victim, Tina, was missing. It would take those at the scene at least several hours to realize that fact. While two of the lead suspects, Martin Smart and his friend John Bubidi, are now dead, others are alive and have been identified, said Hagwood recently. Changed overnight. As word spread through Keddie and the rest of Plumas County of the murders, it's clearly a crime that not only affected Sheila Sharp and her remaining brothers and the boy who was spending the night, it deeply affected some members of the sheriff's office and the community, Gamberg said. Life changed dramatically in 1981 for this whole community, Gamberg said, meaning not just Keddie, which is 6 miles west of Quincy. Everybody was suspicious of everybody and afraid of everybody else, he said. It haunted people, and there were few reassurances from the sheriff's office that they were doing everything possible to catch the killers. Less than mg decoding equal to async class equal to size medium WP image 10060 lazy load sars equal to www.plumusnews.com/WP content /uploads/2018/04 Keddie murders all xd 400x300.jpg alt width equal to 400 height equal to 300 src equal to https www.plumusnews.com/WP content /uploads/2018/04 Keddie murders all. Both Hagwood and Gamberg said residents had very little trust or confidence in the sheriff's department before the murders. In many ways there was even less trust following the deaths. Dropped the ball. In recent interviews, both Hagwood and Gamberg said the sheriff's office and the California Department of Justice blew it in. Leads weren't followed, and evidence wasn't checked. Some of the evidence was ignored. In Gamberg's opinion, you could take someone just coming out of the academy and they'd have done a better job of investigating the case. That said, he understands that some of the individuals who had the experience to work the crime scene and follow the leads weren't allowed to do their jobs in 1981. The California Department of Justice was immediately given the case and then didn't follow through, said Gamberg. And both Hagwood and Gamberg can pinpoint their errors and omissions. The FBI was also involved because it was believed that Tina Sharp was abducted. According to Gamberg, right after the murders, Sheriff Doug Thomas contacted the DOJ in Sacramento. DOJ sent 2 men, Special Agents Harry Bradley and P.A. Krim from the division's Organized Crime Unit, not from Homicide, to investigate. The only way this decision by DOJ makes sense is in considering the background of one of the suspects. Severin John Beau Boubede, Smart's friend. He had known connections with organized crime in Chicago. Boubede also had at least 2 known aliases as Bobby Lake and John DeSantis, according to the Keddie 28 online site administrator DMAC. Although he prefers not to share his identity, DMAC has been heavily investigating the Keddie murders for many years. He's also shared some important information with the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. Although DMAC and Gamberg have some differences of opinion of just what happened in Cabin 28, Gamberg has come to respect DMAC's work. For some reason, the DOJ had an interest in Boubede, according to Gamberg. He wonders if DOJ protected him. Along with Special Agents Krim and Bradley, Spiro Vassos, a fingerprint expert, and Bruce Palmer, an evidence expert, also arrived from DOJ. Although a lot of potential evidence was collected and cataloged, very little worthwhile information was realized from the scene. Remember, this was 1981, and DNA collection and processing at crime scenes didn't begin until 1985. DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is now considered the most reliable physical evidence. Investigators now seek any biological material including skin, hair, blood, and other bodily fluids at crime scenes, according to Randy James in a 2009 feature on DNA testing for Time. Moving forward, DNA might still be retrievable from evidence collected at Keddie Cabin 28 if it hasn't been compromised, and DNA testing facilities are notoriously backlogged. Gamberg said he was fortunate in that he was able to get his piece of DNA processed in a timely manner. Gamberg was a deputy with the Plumas County Sheriff's Office prior to the murders, he said. Then he got fired. When he was reinstated, Thomas kept him out of the investigation. Even his leads in the case were ignored. As a Quincy deputy who knew many of the area residents, understood and had experience in homicide investigation, and as someone who knew at least 2 of the victims, he believes his input should have been taken seriously. Relaunching an investigation. It was 2013. Hagwood in his 3rd year of office had many priorities to contend with inside his department and in the county. His department was short of funding and he was short-staffed. But the unsolved murders of a woman, 2 teenage boys and a girl still haunted him. These were boys he went to school with. Hagwood personally knew them. He was also familiar with Cabin 28 in Keddie. In earlier years before the Sharps moved in, he spent nights there with a friend and his family. Hagwood would graduate from California State University, Sacramento, with a degree in criminal justice. He became a deputy in his hometown in 1988. And as a deputy he knew what was and wasn't happening with the case. Although still open, it wasn't a priority. The Keddie murders, as the case became known, had become infamous as one of the county's leading unsolved crimes. That and his personal connections led Hagwood to resurrect the case, to provide the resources and time needed to solve it. That's when Hagwood asked Gamberg, a private investigator, if he'd like to take over the investigation. Gamberg also knew the 2 boys. He was their coach in martial arts and other activities. Dana Wingate was at his house just the day before he died. Thed, I'd equal to 22,611. Gamberg still had strong opinions about what had and hadn't happened 32 years earlier. He accepted the job, and the challenge of following the evidence and leads that still existed. What Gamberg first encountered was the Keddie murders crime scene room. It's here he would roll up his sleeves and begin going through the evidence. Box after box of evidence, file drawers filled with information and other evidence were all in disarray. What has made this case particularly hard to organize is that the original case history log, who did what and on what date, is gone. Gamberg said he has hunches about what happened to it, but it hasn't been recovered. Gamberg also said that much of the physical evidence taken from Cabin 28 is still in storage. This includes the living room carpet, wallboard, and other items marked with blood and other potential evidence. The problem there is that it's become disorganized, and some of the evidence in storage is contaminated. Some of the evidence was placed in a freezer to preserve it. The freezer got turned off, Gamberg said. This case is as screwed up as a soup sandwich, Gamberg said recently. It's not about what was done, but what was not done. And that was plenty. He also compared the available evidence in 1981 to someone firing a shotgun loaded with evidence, and no one followed up on all of it as it spread out like pellets. It was just left scattered. It wasn't followed, he said. As he sorted, he found 1 bag of evidence that was never opened. The items inside were never entered into evidence, a crucial part of the chain of evidence necessary in crime investigation. Another piece of perhaps vital evidence that Gamberg discovered was in an envelope that was never opened. It contained a tape recording of an anonymous caller to Butte County Dispatch. The call came just after someone discovered a skull and a few bones about 80 miles down the Feather River Canyon in a spot known as Camp 18 about 5 miles from Feather Falls. The discovery came 3 years after Tina's disappearance by a man out hunting bottles. Gamberg shared the contents of the tape with People magazine in 2016 when it featured the crime in 2 magazines and in a news documentary aired on CBS. The anonymous caller said he was watching the news about the discovery at Feather Falls down Highway 70 from Keddie. He said, "And I was wondering if they thought of the murder up in Keddie up in Plumas County a couple years ago where a 12-year-old girl was never found." Although Smart and Boubede fled Plumas County shortly after interviews with DOJ, it's known that Smart allegedly lived in Paradise at the time of that phone call, according to DMAX research. Another person of interest also lived in Butte County. Gamberg is having professionals analyze the tape recording, comparing that male voice to recorded voices of others identified as potential or known suspects. As with other related evidence, the process of scientific evaluation is slow, and a crime that was committed so many years earlier doesn't have the priority recent crimes receive, he said. Gamberg thinks the tape was deliberately ignored when it arrived at the Plumas County Sheriff's Office. "I am not by nature a conspiracy theorist, but there are facts and circumstances, the number and the nature of which I can't ignore anymore," Hagwood told People magazine. Although 2 of the main suspects, Smart and Boubede, are dead, they were alive at the time of Tina Sharp's discovery. Boubede died in 1988, according to Gamberg. He would have been in his 52nds during the murders. Smart died in 2006. Smart would have been in his early 32nds at the time of the Keddie murders. Since 2013, Gamberg has followed the evidence that should have been investigated 37 years earlier. Gamberg is no stranger to homicide cases. From 1974 until his retirement in 1994, he worked all but one of Plumas County's cases. The one he missed, or more accurately wasn't allowed to cover, was the Keddie murder case, he said recently. Just 3 years after reopening the case, Gamberg was talking to the media about new evidence that was recovered, namely a hammer that matches one Smart said went missing before the murders, and a hunting knife recovered in Keddie. And now 2 years after that, he's announced that there's more that links a living person or persons to the crime. Neither Hagwood nor Gamberg are willing to divulge specifics on whom they're watching, but new evidence has given them solid leads. There are people locally who know more than they've said, and I believe we've identified some of them. And we know who they are, and we know where they are. And I have every confidence that they either participated after the fact, or they have first-hand information. It's obviously a worthwhile pursuit. There is not an expiration date on homicides, and to the extent that we have surviving siblings and family members, it is our fundamental obligation to them to understand who did this and why, Hagwood said in 2016. Anyone who has any information on the Keddie murders is asked to call the Keddie Murders Hotline.
This is part 2. Yeah, I don't appreciate conspiracy theorists. Like, if that's all you ever think about, then it's probably why it causes problems. All right, here we go. It's not a skill. It's a malfunction of the brain. All right, here we go. This is part 2 of that same thing. So if you're out there and you can help support the channel, that'd be great.
This is the second part in a 3-part series involving new evidence and information on the infamous Keddie murders. On April 12, 1981, Sheila Sharp, 14, left the neighbor's cabin to return home. When she opened the door to cabin 28, she discovered the bodies of 3 people who had been brutally slain in the living room. Those individuals would prove to be her mother, Glenna Sue Sharp, 36, her 15-year-old brother, John, and his friend Dana Wingate, 17, of Quincy. At some point during the investigation, it would be discovered that Tina Sharp, 12, was missing. Her remains would be discovered in 1984. Case File Update is a new column featuring previous cases involving Plumas County and its people. If anyone has information concerning a cold case, please contact Victoria Metcalf at 283-0800 or vmetcalf@plumasnews.com.
Yeah, I mean, there's some cases that there really is a conspiracy. But it's like everybody likes to do that first. If it develops into a conspiracy, maybe there is. Maybe there is one in this one. And that's why the one-off Gamberg had to, be called back in, because he was originally discounted for some other reason.
Editor's note: this is the second part in a series about Plumas County's unsolved infamous Keddie murders. Some readers might find the following information unsettling or objectionable. Was the 36-year-old mother of 5 the targeted victim in a plan that ended with the deaths of 4 people in 1981? At least 2 investigators into the 37-year-old case believe the evidence tells them that Martin Marty Smart and Severin John Bo Boubede and accomplices allegedly intended to do great bodily harm to Glenna Sue Sharp. less than mg decoding equal to async class equal to wp image 10324 size medium lazy load sars equal to www.plumusnews.com/wp content /upload/2018/04 Keddie murders all x 400x268.jpg alt width equal to 400 height equal to 268 src sequel to https www.plumusnews.com/wp content /upload/2018/04 Keddie murders all x 400x268.jpg 400 www.plumusnews.com/ Plumas County Sheriff's Special Investigator Mike Gamberg has spent years studying.
I don't know why it starts reading off all that stuff. But thanks, Sandy Shirley. She said, thank you for staying on longer. I'm disappointed, too, in the lack of support. Wish I could do more. Well, I don't want people to send me anything if you can't afford it. I'm just trying to figure out why, it's such a struggle these days. I mean, just immediately on a dime, like just even a month and a half ago, we were reaching the goal regularly, etc. And now every single night it's like pulling teeth, and there shouldn't be that big of a difference in a month. Christmas has been over for a long time.
Studying and pondering the remaining evidence in the Keddie murders. Sue Sharp's murder was allegedly premeditated, said DMAC, an online investigator for website Keddie28.com. DMAC believes the crimes were premeditated based on how the chief suspects behaved that night, and what they allegedly took to cabin 28, medical tape, knives, a hammer and probably a Daisy 880 pellet gun. DMAC draws his proof in that he learned that a pellet probably from that weapon was found on the floor between the two boys' bodies. Part of its sights were broken off and found in the living room. It appears to have been used to batter one of the boys, and Sue's face, he said. Gamberg knew the two teenage boys who died sometime during the night of April and/or the early morning hours of April. Although he was kept away from the case by his superiors in the sheriff's office, that doesn't mean he didn't maintain interest in it over the years. In 2013, Plumas County Sheriff Greg Hagwood brought the private investigator and former deputy out of retirement and handed him the Keddie case. Since then, he's moving closer to recognizing the truth of where the evidence is leading. DMAC got interested in the Keddie murders in 2010 and has been researching them since. Once he and Gamberg came to understand and trust one another, they began sharing information. Who were the Sharps? Sue Sharp left her allegedly abusive husband, James Sharp, in 1979. He was in the military, she was a stay-at-home mother. She and her 5 children left North Carolina and headed indirectly to Quincy because her brother Don Davis lived in the area. At first, she rented a small mobile home in the Claremont Trailer Park. James Sharp is reported to have visited the family in 1979, but didn't return. That November, Sue Sharp moved her family to Keddie and into a larger home. Although cabin 28 had 2 bedrooms, 15-year-old John Sharp moved into a room in the basement that could only be accessed from the outside. The doors were traditionally kept unlocked so that John could access the upstairs, including the only bathroom. The 2 younger boys shared one bedroom, and Sue and her daughters, Sheila and Tina, shared the other bedroom. Neither Sue nor her children received support from James Sharp, according to Gamberg. To supplement her small income of $250 from the Navy, food stamps and a part-time job at the Quincy Elks Lodge, Sue Sharp enrolled in a California Education Training Act program. For that, she received a small stipend. Sue participated in a typing class at Feather River College as part of the education program. Also attending that class were Marilyn and Marty Smart, Gamberg said. The Smarts had been together by this time since sometime in 1979. The 2 families lived in cabins that were relatively close to one another in Keddie. In reality, Keddie is a small community wedged between Spanish Creek and the railroad line. Although Sue Sharp was described as someone who kept to herself, other residents would have quickly learned to move to town. In looking at an aerial view of Keddie in 1981, the Sharps' cabin 28 was in the middle of a block not far from the hotel. Next door, cabin 27 was lived in by the Seabolt family. These cabins were on Keddie Station Loop Road, across a narrow street called Spanish Oaks Lane, and right in line with the other 2 cabins is cabin 2006 where the Smarts and Marilyn's 2 sons and his pal Boo Bede lived. Although cabins 28 and 27 were demolished along with others in the early 2000s, cabin 26 still stands. Less than mg decoding equal to async class equal to size medium wp image 10327 lazy load sars equal to www. In 1981, Keddie had a hotel complete with bar and restaurant, a general store, a post office and a boarding house where some Feather River College students lived. Railroad employees still rented cabins or owned homes year-round in this once active summer resort. The Smart Connection. Smart was living for a time in Portland, and then joined Marilyn at her aunt's home in Bernie. The aunt, Joan Andrews, told a member of the Plumas County Sheriff's Office that Marilyn told her of an alleged incident concerning Martin Smart when they were in Phoenix, according to DMAC. Martin got into an argument with his father and went out and purchased items to make a bomb to blow up his father's house. Andrews said that while living with her, she allegedly saw Smart practice throwing a hatchet quite a bit and kept the hatchet in his residence. He also tried to purchase guns during that time. Andrews also said that Smart spent a considerable amount of time reading the Bible and was fanatical about other people's morals, according to information from DMAC. Although Marilyn said that her husband allegedly tried to run over her and one of her sons once, and in 1980 allegedly pulled a knife on her and threatened to cut her, she stayed with him. Less than img decode equal to async classical to size medium WP image 10329 lazy load sars equal to www.plumasnews.com/WP content/upload/20. Smart arrived in Keddie sometime in 1980 and went to work as a cook in the hotel restaurant. That's when they moved into cabin 26. Smart lost his job just prior to the Keddie murders, Gamberg said. Having interviewed former resort co-owner Jan Albin, Gamberg said Albin had more to say, but chose to leave it that Smart's cooking wasn't satisfactory. Gamberg said Smart was supporting himself and his family by allegedly selling drugs and manufacturing hashish. This was allegedly happening during and after his job as a cook. Gamberg said that at this time Keddie had a large drug house. He knew who ran it, who dealt drugs, and who were some of the runners. Smart was of particular interest for a number of reasons. He was a player, Gamberg said, meaning that he allegedly cheated on his wife. One of the women he was allegedly involved with was Sue Sharp, and Sue was said to be counseling Marilyn Smart, Marty's wife, about leaving her husband because he was allegedly abusive and wasn't faithful to her, he said. Gamberg called it a complicated triangle. But then, Smart wasn't the only man Sue Sharp was allegedly involved with. Gamberg believes that Smart learned of Sue and Marilyn's talks. He described Smart as a very possessive, jealous man. He said that he's learned that Marilyn was allegedly the same way. These factors played into why the two men and probably others went to cabin sometime that night. Allegedly, Smart and his companions were going to teach Sue Smart a lesson, and they came prepared. DMAC disagrees. He doesn't believe that Sue Sharp was counseling Marilyn Smart. When I heard that theory, I knew it was a big lie, he said recently. DMAC does agree with Gamberg in that he believes Marty Smart and Sue were involved. Gamberg and DMAC agree that John Sharp, his younger sister Tina and Dana Wingate got in the way, and for that they died. Following the evidence, Gamberg has been working towards solving the Keddie murders with some incredible results. He announced recovering a hammer matching the description Smart gave of his own hammer. He told Department of Justice special agents in an interview shortly after the murders that it went missing about the same time. In discussing this, Smart went on to say that whoever took the hammer would have been wiser to take his hatchet, according to information from DMAC. Gamberg also announced recovering a hunting knife in a pile.
So they're saying that Sue and Smart were involved. The guy apparently lived right next door.
Of debris in Keddie, and a recorded message sent from Butte County's dispatch to the sheriff's office. Less than AMG decode equal to async classical to WP image 10325 size medium lazy load sars equal to www.plumasnews.com/WP content/upload/2018/04/Keddie murders all XJ 268X4. Gamberg called it a complicated triangle. But then, Smart wasn't the only man Sue Sharp was allegedly involved with. Gamberg believes that Smart learned of Sue and Marilyn's talks. He described Smart as a very possessive, jealous man. He said that he's learned that Marilyn was allegedly the same way. These factors played into why the two men and probably others went to cabin sometime that night. Allegedly, Smart and his companions were going to teach Sue Smart a lesson, and they came prepared. DMAC disagrees. He doesn't believe that Sue Sharp was counseling Marilyn Smart. When I heard that theory, I knew it was a big lie, he said recently. DMAC does agree with Gamberg in that he believes Marty Smart and Sue were involved. Gamberg and DMAC agree that John Sharp, his younger sister Tina and Dana Wingate got in the way, and for that they died. Following the evidence, Gamberg has been working towards solving the Keddie murders with some incredible results. He announced recovering a hammer matching the description Smart gave of his own hammer. He told Department of Justice special agents in an interview shortly after the murders that it went missing about the same time. In discussing this, Smart went on to say that whoever took the hammer would have been wiser to take his hatchet, according to information from DMAC. Gamberg also announced recovering a hunting knife in a pile of debris in Keddie, and a recorded message sent from Butte County's dispatch to the sheriff's office. All three items are in the possession of the DOJ, and the FBI is awaiting forensic analysis. That's a slow and expensive process. Gamberg has been waiting for 2 years and understands that a 37-year-old unsolved murder is a lower priority. Despite that, Gamberg keeps reminding them he's waiting for the results. Gamberg is optimistic that the man's voice on the tape suggesting remains discovered near Feather Falls, were those of Tina Sharp, would match another recording in the sheriff's possession. DMAC finds everything about the discovery of Tina's remains suspicious. First, there was the find. He doesn't believe that a real bottle hunter happened to stumble on the girl's remains 3 years to the day of the murders and her disappearance. He believes that someone knew where Tina would be found and happened to make it public by having someone not directly connected to the Keddie case make the discovery. DMAC said he's been to camp, miles from Feather Falls. Camp is hard to find. I knew where it was from researching it on Google Maps and Earth, and became quite conversant with the road systems and networks. When it came time to going there, those roads are not labeled nor are they mapped correctly. DMAC wrote May 22, 2016 on the Cabin 28 Keddie Murders Forum. As much work as I'd done, I still got lost twice trying to get there. Where Tina was found was way off the dirt road in the wild. The location of her skull is the last place a bottle hunter would be looking for bottles near Camp 18, which is another reason I believe Padrini's the man who discovered the remains' involvement is less than accidental, DMAC said. But Tina Sharp's remains were found and identified in 1984, regardless of how that came about. DMAC's analysis of the find adds just another wrinkle among many in the case. One tip that led to the news flurry in 2016 came about in helping Gamberg find a hammer possibly used in the fatal beatings of the 3 victims. Gamberg said his tip came by way of someone who attended a wedding in the Keddie area. A woman lost a ring, so the man returned with a metal detector in an effort to recover it. What he discovered was a hammer in the dried-up pond near the resort entrance. He left the hammer and eventually contacted DMAC, who in turn contacted Gamberg. Gamberg said together he and the unnamed man went to the pond. By then it was full of water, but they did manage to recover the hammer. It matches the physical description of the one Smart said he lost. The pond was a natural place to conceal something. Someone leaving the murder scene could have tossed in the evidence, Gamberg explained. There doesn't appear to be any evidence that special agents or anyone from the sheriff's office checked the pond for evidence in 1981. What Gamberg is still hoping is that once decades of rust are teased away from the hammer and knife, some sort of evidence will be discovered, and that evidence will link someone or perhaps several suspects to the murder. Less than AMG decoding equal to async class equal to WP image 10322 size medium lazy load source equal to www.plumusnews.com/WP content /upload/2018/04 /Keddie murders allxg 400x300.jpg alt width equal to 400 height equal to 300 src seats equal to https www.plumusnews.com/wp content /upload/2018/04 /Keddie murders. This isn't all of the evidence Gamberg has recovered. There's the DNA match to a living person of interest. Gamberg and the sheriff know whom the individual is and where to find this person. What they haven't disclosed is if or when they might question that person again, or if they're considering an arrest. Love letter. There's also a handwritten letter from Smart to his wife. If it isn't a confession, it's damn sure close, Gamberg said recently. The letter, on flowery yellow stationery, was written just weeks after the murders. By this point, Smart and Bubid had been interviewed and allowed to leave Plumas County, and were in Klamath Falls, Oregon, according to Gamberg. It's a love letter in which Smart is begging and demanding his wife come back to him. The letter states in part, "I've paid the price of your love amp. Now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great, what else do you want?" Smart signed the letter, Gamberg said. Marilyn Smart reportedly moved out of Cabin 26 April 12, the same day the murders were discovered. Gamberg and DMAC know exactly where she went and why. It was no surprise. Although she was angry that her husband was having an affair with Sue Sharp, she too was allegedly seeing someone else. Marilyn Smart reportedly gave the sheriff's office the letter at some time in the past. When she was asked about it, Gamberg said she claimed not to remember it. She did, however, recognize her former husband's handwriting when she was shown the letter. Less than AMG decoding equal to async class. The letter was addressed to Marilyn at their former Keddie post office box. Smart gave his address in Klamath Falls. Gamberg said that Marilyn is remarried and still alive. He also knows where she lives. Expert eyes. In September, the case could realize even more concrete information, as well as the opportunity to better understand existing or new evidence. Gamberg is invited to present his evidence to a group of approximately 80 retired crime scene experts. These individuals include forensic professionals, current and former FBI profilers, homicide investigators, scientists, psychologists, prosecutors, and coroners. Gamberg said he learned of the Vidocq Society and contacted them. They were interested, and he was invited to send them a synopsis of the case. They accepted the case to review, and will pay his expenses when he visits them in Philadelphia this fall. Gamberg said he is optimistic that these experts will provide valuable advice and direction in the case. By September, he expects to have more evidence to give them. If anyone has any knowledge about the Keddie murder case, he or she is invited to call.
Anyway, that was back in 2018. So. Okay, what does it got to do with what we're talking about now, Truth Sleuth? Anyways, all right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Naomi, Moofies, and Sandy. I guess there was also Kayla for the coffees. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. See you guys later. Be safe out there.